又係有電嘅呢啲。
He was saying he was brilliant.
Hmm?
He was like, when everybody left Afghanistan
Hmm?
and the Taliban started to do when he got there,
個差就
one of the
冇
countries,
冇咗嘅點解？
his family had evacuated across the border to Pakistan, and then a few of us in our platoon had to write letters.
No，
sing through
爸
walls,
爸攞叉在先。
and to be proud.
I don't want to.
So that's something to be proud of. There's other stuff like being an instructor at Catherine. I mean, you've got to be good to go down there because you're teaching the next infantry of Fleet Club 500s and recruits in the battalion. And it's good to be part of that. Both grandfathers were in the military. Oh no, memorabilia and stuff like that. So that's where Manchester originates from. My mum's dad was in the Desert Rats. My other granddad, dad's dad was in the Royal Artillery, Special Forces back in 1940 or something. I end up lonely enough, that's where I'm going. The Chelsea pensioners. Like a home for the military ex-service people. They kept busy, there's always something for them. It's their form of therapy. It's like Headley Court. I'm quite fortunate, I go down to Headley Court every 3 years.
BBC Radio Ohio. BBC Radio America. BBC Radio America.
And there's 100 of us that's taken part in it, and it's over the 22 years, which is quite interesting when you go down to Headley Court.
I saw another brown car the exact same shade of your car,
Really?
but different company.
I was in Jordan the first time it dislocated. We were paying a
Definitely
fine.
different company.
I was running along with my rifle and the knife on the end, stabbing dummies.
I know what you're saying.
No，你有電話啦，唔係咩？
Yeah, but it's
不咩啊？
very low battery. Wait.
爸爸要知道點行啊。
Well, then memorize it.
No.
Why?
But it took a
Oh,
long time
come
to
on.
show
Then I'm watching your phone
I
at
literally had more
Cookie.
operations, went back to Bill Fitness. Years down the line, I went for an X-ray.
Come on, let's
And
go,
they
go,
told me, "Nah,
go.
that's your shoulder's not good enough for army service." So there you go. My shoulder was fine. Like, still do everything I
我哋
wanted
遲
to
到
do.
咁樣，哥哥。
People
Come
take
on,
my
let's
hand
go.
and
Are you going or not?
I'm going now.
arm
Okay.
and stuff like that.
Okay.
Even finishing up with 5 security and coming home, still crying. He's still fighting.
哇，好慘啊！
Change the working environment. So yeah, that's very difficult.
You've got to find something you like to do. I was just fortunate I got asked to go and work for a Formula 1 team. It was just a different challenge for driving track, you know. So I came out of the army, so I went straight to do that. So I had that skill for a visa. I'd wait for people. So when I came out, I knew I trained twice a week for them.
凍唔凍啊你哥哥？
So as
你凍
long
唔
as
凍
you
啊？
keep yourself busy, it's not that hard. It was when COVID happened, that's when I got bored. I like activity. I like to get out. I like to be but I was still going and
哇，咁多車啊！
bar, stay active. I haven't had that for a long time.
Especially mental stuff, physical stuff. So a lot of people find it hard to get that when they're suffering.
What?
What?
People around me afterwards says they see it coming. But I was always worried and told them what I needed to do, but then when it was finished work, that's when I came into play again. And then I just couldn't do that.
哥哥，你尋日問爸爸攞多啲時間，爸爸應該俾咗1個鐘你啊，俾唔俾？得唔得啊？嚇？你攞唔到啊 ？No？ 即係爸爸俾咗你，其實你都冇用，冇啊。
So we didn't even get three.
即係咪？
All I did.
係咪咁啊，哥哥？Yippee！哥哥，Yippee！不過你之前咧，咪俾錢買咗個effort free 嘅 game 嘅。你之前有個 game 好多 effort，跟住你買一個 effort free 嘅 version 嘅，有冇再玩啊？嚇！你嗰個都唔記得咗已經。你之前有隻 game 啊，玩啊，跟住係咁話有廣告啊，跟住話要俾錢，整到係冇 effort 啊嘛，記唔記得啊？之前有隻 game 啊，你係咁玩啊，跟住話係咁有 effort 啊，跟住叫我啊，俾你買，即係買呢個 effort free 俾你啊。你冇再玩啊？你仲綜合咩 ？Limit？ 你係咪想玩啊？咁點解唔玩啊？咩話班？ 哇！水浸啊睇，浸到咁啊，見唔見到啊？嗰度啊
Whoa! Is that a foot?
，yeah。
Or is that ball?
That would stand for from our old correspondent. Western governments express support for Hamas at 1.5 million Its peace diplomats gave its following their broads over developments in the Middle East and any prospective peaceful solution. The province of Kivu in the Democratic Republic of Congo has seen intensive fighting and violence since early last year. We tracked the army taking on the M23 rebel group. And we're in Bali, where the ripple effects of the conflict in Ukraine and Russia are being felt even on the shores of this Indonesian island, despite its geographical distance. But first, it's been 4 weeks since Hamas carried out its deadly attack in Israel. At each week, more details revealed about the killing spree, the devastation it led to the music festival and its in southern Israel. According to Israeli authorities, the number of hostages taken captive is now thought to be more than 250. The armed wing of Hamas this week released a video showing 3 of the hostages, one of whom berates Benjamin Netanyahu and calls for the rest of the hostages. Nothing's known about the conditions in which this video was filmed, but it has further fueled criticism of the Israeli Prime Minister's approach, as recent polls show waning support for the ground in Gaza. Back in Jerusalem, our correspondent Paul Adams finds there's a pervasive sense of insecurity in the city's streets, with violent incidents countering any efforts to maintain a veneer of calm.
Netanyahu.
And 2,500 feet above Gaza, the war is almost out of earshot. From the BBC's live position in the evening, you can sometimes hear the distant rumble of explosions echoing across the hills in the dark, like listening to the Battle of the Somme from Kent to Sussex. Every now and then, a siren sound. A couple of times, we heard the first Iron Dome missile defense system engaging a rocket fired from Gaza. But on Monday, on a sunlit morning, the conflict came right to the door of the hotel. First, automatic gunfire suddenly shattering the morning calm, drowning out the we watched as a man ran down the Nablus road below us, followed soon after by armed policemen. A moment of silence, and then another burst of gunfire. Sirens wailed, emergency vehicles converged from all directions, and we watched as an injured policeman was loaded into an ambulance and driven away. Pretty soon it was all over. The sound returned, and football returned. Down the road, a young man, Adam Nasser Al-Kawa, lay dying, his blood trickling down the tarmac towards the gates of St. George's Cathedral, seat of the Anglican Church in Jerusalem. For reasons we can only guess at, Adam had tried to stab the policeman and grab his weapon. Another
Policeman?
death in a city where incidents like this barely get mentioned. It was little enough time for us to comment either, but as we made our way to the office, the latest news from Gaza was starting to
No. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Da 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 da.
of failing to bring the hostages home. Free us now, she insisted, her voice rising to a scream. Free the prisoners. Let us get back to our families. Now! Now! Now!
Now.
It was unbearable.
Now.
Asked to talk about
Now.
it later, I found it almost impossible to describe. Mr. Netanyahu called it the cruelest
Netanyahu. Netanyahu. Netanyahu.
3 weeks after their violent abduction, 3 weeks of captivity in the bunkers and tunnels of Gaza, these were words uttered under circumstances of unimaginable duress. You also felt that Danielle was speaking not just to the hostages, but the many families in Israel and abroad who fear they will never see their mothers, fathers, or children again.
Truth.
On Thursday, I visited one of my oldest friends in Jerusalem, a gentle, academic, liberal-minded Israeli I first met more than 30 years ago. I needed to hear how all this felt for him. I was barely through the front door before he declared that he was done. He never wanted to have anything to do with the Palestinians ever again. He'd seen too much. Now he said, let the army do what it needs to do. After decades of building walls to keep themselves safe and Palestinians out of sight, Israelis are still shocked to the core by the horrors perpetrated against them on October the 7th, and by what they think of the outside walls of Hamas' inability to comprehend them. They were furious when the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres dared to suggest that the attacks on Israel did not happen in a vacuum. His reference to what he called 56 years of suffocating occupation experienced by the Palestinians caused outrage in Israel. The government demanded his resignation.
That's the car park we are parking.
Trying to justify terrorism. But for all the shocking depravity of the massacres of October the 7th, they didn't come out of nowhere. They emerged from a long, bitter history that both sides have to confront if they're ever going to move past this terrible moment. Right now, there is absolutely no sign of it happening. Late on Thursday night, I learned that a Palestinian friend from Gaza had lost almost his entire family. His father, brothers, sister, their children, 21 people, all killed in an Israeli airstrike while they slept in their home in Deir al-Balah, halfway down the Gaza Strip.
冇
I
位
sent
啊，
him a
哥哥。
WhatsApp offering utterly inadequate words of sympathy, not expecting to hear back. But the replies came quickly, in a torrent. I am broken, he wrote. Everything is gone. Everyone.
Paul Adams. Turkey and Israel don't share a border, but they're regional rivals and
啊，
allies.
你早啲過嚟啊嘛，哥哥。
Israel has over the years
冇位嚟㗎。
cultivated Turkey as a valuable non-Arab regional power. But as Turkey's government has grown more Islamist in tone, it has its own problems building better relations with the
Oh,
Turkish
this is
state.
not public car
And
park.
in the last week, tensions have tightened further after President Recep
This is not
Tayyip Erdogan addressed a pro-Palestinian protest, in which he
我哋要拍咗 lyrics 啊。
Hamas, convincing in his criticism of Israel's
it's difficult.
offensive in Gaza. Victoria Craig spoke to some of the people who were at the rally, many of whom adopted a more nuanced position to that of their leader.
It was a vast spectacle. As the sun set on the now decommissioned Ataturk Airport in Istanbul, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's voice boomed across the tarmac. He stood on a sprawling stage as a sea of supporters waved Turkish and Palestinian flags that billowed before him in the hot breeze. Officially, 1.5 million people had filed into the airport on October 28th for what was dubbed the Great Palestine Rally. As the Turkish president spoke, I watched from a packed press box 2 stories above ground, while snipers kept watch atop the old airport's terminal. The crowd booed at just the mention of Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and cheered when the president claimed that Israel had committed war crimes in Gaza. Before President Erdogan took the stage, my producer and I ventured into the crowd of people queuing in a calm and orderly way as they moved through a series of security checks. And while this mass of people seemed united in their support of the Palestinians, their individual views of President Erdogan's rhetoric and Turkey's reaction to the crisis covered a broad spectrum. 79-year-old Turk was slowly making his way down a seemingly never-ending stretch of passenger bridges that once funneled travelers into planes. He believed we need to unite to prevent this kind of injustice. He said both Israelis and Palestinians seem to be right, and no one should be superior to anyone else. As we turned a corner and headed into a denser area of the crowd, we found a woman named Insanir Yildirim.
Can't go back
She was
now.
with a group of women and wore a veil that covered her face. She told me the events of the past month are a crisis, not just for the Palestinian territories, but the entire Islamic world. She said, as human beings, we should view what's happening as a humanitarian crime. Nearby, Erdogan Oğuz and his young son held signs calling for the Muslim world to do more to support Palestinians. One sign read, "It seems that this blood, this despair won't end until the world's Muslims become Muslims." Aaron said too many people have been silent and concerned about this referendum on peace. Sooner or later, he guessed, it will affect everyone too. In the days following Hamas's October 7th attacks in Israel, President Erdogan sought to bring an end to the crisis. In a speech, he said, quote, "Permanent peace can only come to the Middle East with a solution to the Palestine-Israel problem. That would come," he said, "in the form of a 2-state solution in which Jerusalem would be the capital of a contiguous Palestinian state." Relations between Turkey and Israel had only recently begun to thaw, having over the last decade largely been a relationship of convenience. But the blast at the Al-Aqsa hospital in Gaza on October 17th seemed to mark a turning point for the Turkish president. Mr. Erdogan rushed to blame Israel and tweeted that the explosion was, quote, "the latest example of Israel's attacks devoid of the most basic human values." He held firmly to this stance even after several other governments, including the UK and the US, concluded the missile had been fired from within Gaza. President Erdogan's rhetoric reached a climax at the airport rally in Istanbul, where he declared Israel to be a war criminal and the West, quote, "the main culprit behind the massacre unfolding in Gaza." He also reiterated an earlier stance that Turkey does not consider Hamas to be a terrorist organization, as the US, the UK, and the European Union have classified it, but rather a group for liberation and its gunmen as freedom fighters. Israel's foreign minister announced later that day he would recall the country's diplomats from Ankara after what it described as grave statements coming from Turkey. In a sign of how President Erdogan's tougher talk on Israel and its allies is filtering through parts of Turkish society, one man in his 50s at the rally didn't want to give his name,
Why
but hit out
can't
at what he called
Hamas
the
massacre
imperialist threat.
Israelis?
He called for Muslim nations,
Nga
including
Hamas
Turkey, to band together
massacre
in
Israeli.
and said if no collective
Because
action is
because
taken, he
Israelis
believes Muslim
are
nations
literally
will disappear.
massacring the
After President Erdogan wrapped up his speech that day, the
咁
sea
點
of
解
flag-waving supporters
Israeli 做
filed
呢啲
out
嘢
as
先
they had come.
because of
Quickly,
Hamas,
and
but
with a range
Hamas
of
is a
passionate
terrorist
views.
organization,
Victoria Crane.
and
In
technically,
Geneva, the
this
home
is a
of the
humanitarian
Relief
disaster.
and the
Inhuman
International Committee of the
suffering.
Red Cross, it's Peace Week.
This is inhuman
Diplomats,
suffering. It
aid
has to
workers and
stop.
academics have all gathered to discuss ways to achieve peace. Better ones, perhaps, than they've tried so far. The week happens every year, but this year, as conflict rages in the Middle East and in Ukraine or Sudan, some are asking whether international organizations and international law are losing their relevance. Imogen Fuchs reports.
我嗰陣間要睇下邊度有得泊位嘅，俾我。
There's the wealth and elegance of its bustling centre, 5-star hotels lining the lake, and high-end shops devoted to the most conspicuous consumption. If you've got plenty of money and want to flaunt it, this could be the town for you. But just a short tram ride away are the international organizations, the UN Refugee Agency, UN Human Rights, UNICEF, the Red Cross. What goes on here is a world away from those luxury boulevards. For these organizations, the focus is on supporting the world's most vulnerable, the displaced, the hungry, the wounded or sick, the traumatized. Geneva is also the city where international law was invented, the law that forbids the taking of hostages, that forbids also the denial of life's basics,
Denial of life.
food to civilians. Ever since Hamas attacked Israel, humanitarian organizations have begged for those laws to be respected. They don't feel they're being listened to. It's easy to dismiss humanitarian organizations as naive or idealistic, but many of the people who work for them have seen war firsthand. They know what
The car
violence
park
and
will be locked at
deprivation can do.
6:30.
When they
no.
mourn of the unbearable suffering of children, whether taken hostage or
Oh,
buried under rubble, they would like to be taken seriously. Instead, the rockets continue to fly, the bombs to fall. And this is where Geneva becomes even stranger. This week, it has been hosting Peace Week, the sad irony in the midst of so much conflict. Again, it would be easy to dismiss those taking part as the rose-tinted glasses brigade. Again, it would be unfair. One participant I brought up with
Car
was
park full.
formerly
Please
in
wait
West
till the bomb.
Say Saddam Hussein. When he was
Come
in office,
on!
journalists loved his outspokenness. Many UN diplomats are tight-lipped, but not Zayn. Today, he's worried that, whether it be over Syria, Ukraine, or now the Middle East, with one resolution after another vetoed at the Security Council, the UN looks increasingly weak, its humanitarian role sidelined. It's not new, Zayn tells me. It's a pattern that has developed over 20 years or more, where there has been a willful neglect of international law and no action against those neglecting
No
it.
action.
Now, he says,
Just kill
the
the one
organisation is
neglecting it
helpless.
and put him in the
Why is this? After years of reporting on the UN, I know very well that many countries,
Who's
among
the
them
new
the
leader?
most powerful, can view the UN as an interfering nuisance,
dictator.
especially if UN scrutiny is directed at them.
A
But
dictator?
Zayn has a more reflective explanation. We have become, he says, increasingly tribal and more tribalized our pain. There's a focus on the centrality of my pain,
Da
my
da
community's pain, he
da
says.
da da
Shush,
da.
Recognition for that.
Shut
But the
the
reality is, right now, the pain in Israel and in Gaza are both very real.
What
Without
the
any
hell?
recognition of that, he fears conflicts will continue and increasingly international law designed to reduce the pain of civilians caught up in war will be ignored. He reminds me that the very reason we have laws against hostage taking, against collective punishment, against disproportionate attacks on civilians, is because after the horrors of the Second World War, we didn't tribalize our pain, but instead said a collective never again. Is all that now being abandoned, I wonder? Well, he says, if we want to plunge ourselves into the abyss, we can do it, of course, but we will all suffer grievously. Millions of lives will be lost, and whether we can even survive it is a question. Really, we have to deal with the immense stupidity of wars. As Peace Week drew to a close, everyone in tranquil Geneva agreed that solving disagreements by killing each other is pretty stupid. They just can't seem to make
Good
the
old
rest of the
boy.
world listen. Next week, in this city of contrasts, the mood will be quite different. It's magnificent jewels week.
他老爸不
Big
懂。
big auction houses sell off diamonds, rubies and sapphires the size of quail's eggs. As I said, Geneva is a strange place.
Imogen Fuchs. The east of the Democratic Republic of Congo is a region which has endured multiple crises. It's an area rich in minerals and full of armed groups vying to exploit them. It's also a long way from DRC's capital, Kinshasa, right at the DRC's central government to exert control here. Right now, the Congolese military's most pressing challenge in this region is fighting the rebel group called M23. M23 is itself led by soldiers who mutinied and broke away from the National Army more than a decade ago. In the city of Goma, Hugh Kinselakanda perceived the consequences.
The tanks roared up the highway. Soviet-era T-55s with soldiers clinging to the turrets.
啲邊邊位
Infantry
冇人
rebels
冇
were
人
on the march, and the Congolese army was going to fight them. Motorcycle taxi riders, lost in the passion of the moment, followed the column out of the city of Goma, cheering their troops on, even as the black exhaust smoke of the ancient tanks billowed around them. This was my front row seat to one of the world's most neglected conflicts.
誒嗰
In
度
the
係
early
位，
days of the fighting,
嗰個係喺
the
度，
military outpost in the Virunga Mountains.
喺度喺度
I
喺度
spoke。to Congolese troops who had survived the battle in which 20 of their friends had been killed. Isolated in these cold highland trenches, they were slaughtered in the night rain. The assailants had come armed to the teeth, they said, bringing the tools of modern war, night vision, small reconnaissance drones. How could rebels who had spent the last decade sitting in disarmament camps
White elephant in HS2 while recommitting to an even less useful and overpriced one in east-west Wales. Peter Carl, what does Labour make of this?
收唔到
Well,
喎
look, I'm really sorry that this is happening to your community, but I think what I've heard is
塞車啊！
communities have little voice to being completely ignored as this whole infrastructure project has unfolded, and I think that's the source of. We as a country have got to keep upgrading our infrastructure, and I think on the line here there would be parts of the line where it's popular, usually I suspect both ends of it, but you in the rural areas in between just haven't been listened to, and I think that from EWR and other people who've been responsible for rolling this out, planning it, you've got to listen to every community in between. Now,
What would Labour do differently then?
all I can say is that when it comes to other parts of the infrastructure that we have been planning, such as onshore wind farms, we have said we will do so only in consultation with local communities, and we will make sure that the benefit from such infrastructure upgrade is felt locally in some kind of, whether it be subsidies, whether it be access to some of the electricity that's reduced from it.
But that wouldn't work for
No,
a
we know,
railway.
but we are establishing a framework so that we can ensure that benefits who are affected by infrastructure upgrades actually benefit from some of the benefits that come down the line. But it is crucial that you need to be listened to at the very,
Well,
very
I
first
got it.
moment. You cannot be steamrolled
Well
into
done.
the community.
Okay. Samantha Hartnett?
Well, I know really very little about the plans except when I was talking to my dad about where I was coming and saying that there was something about a railway going on, he said, I thought there was a railway between Oxford and Cambridge, because obviously he's very old, this is my dad. And I said, no, I think Beeching took it away. So maybe local pressure made Beeching take it away. I don't know. But don't you want to be able to get to Oxford, or is it a Cambridge-Oxford thing? You want a station? Well, there is. That's what you need. You need a station, and then you get the benefit of it. Okay, that's it.
There we go.
On to the next question.
There we go, Samantha. Thank you. Gwen Hines?
Like others, I'm not really an expert on this one at all. I mean, all I would say is that at a time when there's not enough money doing things that people do want, it feels like a bit of a strange question. So with that, I'll pass.
Okay. Gareth, David, I'm not going to let you pass on this one. I mean, you can hear the opposition. HS2 was scrapped. Is East-West Rail going to follow suit?
So obviously we need infrastructure in our country, we need our communities to be well connected, but we've got to bring people with us, we've got to ensure that they have a voice. Absolutely, as I understand it, we've gone through stage 1, that construction is underway to Bletchley, and stages 2 and 3 up for statutory consultation next year. So would absolutely encourage everybody to be part of that. I know the National Audit Office are also looking at the economic viability and the strategic case for this, and DFT, as I understand it, are contributing to that work as well. So it's absolutely right that we, build infrastructure. We get a lot of stick frequently for not having good connections. This obviously would create a good connection, but you've got to ensure that when you do it, you bring people with you, and that's why consultations are so important.
Thank you all. There is time for one more, and I'm pleased that we've got to this one. Our final comes from Peter James.
Thank you. When Any Questions next visits Harston in 2073, how will the world have changed?
Peter, thank you. I said at the very top of the programme we were here 50 years ago to the day, and perhaps we will be here in another 50 years, 2073. Can you imagine? How will the world have changed? Samantha Hart.
Wow, this is a great thing to think of, isn't it? I mean, obviously the real answer is it's impossible to say, because if you'd asked people the same question in 1973, they wouldn't have foreseen half these things. I mean, they wouldn't have imagined us talking about, is AI going to take everybody's jobs? There will probably be a protest about someone planning to put a flying taxi port on the outskirts of the village, which is going to disrupt you all with the flying cars going overhead. I think there's reason to be optimistic. If you look at the sweep of history, life expectancy should have gone up. There's level of
삭제다.係咪今日 football 嗰個？
healthcare should have improved.
今日 football 係咪啊
Again!
That's why so many people.
Every Saturday is football.
No, every Saturday. Last Saturday
If
isn't.
you think
But it
about
feels like it.
lives now as opposed to in the 1970s, we kind of don't notice how much better life has got because it's happened incrementally and we're all in our own lives. But actually, humans can do pretty good things when we get on with it together.
Thank you. Peter Kyle.
Well, all those positive things that Samantha dangled before us will only happen if we make it happen. What we do know from history is there's no inevitability about getting things getting better. So in 100 years' time, we can look back on 10-year programme for the world with Keir Starmer government. The 7.3 million people who are waiting for treatment on NHS, that will be dealt with. The 56,000 people who are victims of crime waiting
I mean, these are big pressures. We're going to have to come back
will
to
be
the
tackling
whole
that
of the
too.
account for them all.
So at least we'll have the foundations for moving forward as a country, grabbing all the opportunities before us, but only if we vote for it, and only if we get another general election soon, so we can change direction.
You've got an election message in there as well. How will the world have changed, do you think, when?
Well, very selfishly, by then I'll be just about to celebrate my 100th birthday, so I hope I get the kind of bunting and celebration we've got in the village hall today.
We will put it up for you if you come back on your 100th birthday, Gwen. We'd love to have it there for you. And Gareth, what do you think of this? I mean, we've talked a lot in this programme about big concepts like AI, for example. I mean, we're going to all look very different. Could we see an AI version of Gareth Davies?
I hope not. I think, although I've quite like to replace me on things like this sometimes, but I think that the human race, as you were saying, Sandra, is amazing. It's amazing what it's developed and I can't imagine where we'll be by then, but I know that we'll all be connected. We'll also have the same values. We'll all have the same determination to work for this country.
Thank you all very much indeed. We are out of time. Can you believe it? It always does fly. Just enough time for me to tell you next week we are going to be in Northern Ireland, and the week after that we're going to be in London. If you want to have your say on anything that we discussed through the course of the programme, if you're a Northern here and you want to have your say on that East-West rail line, give Anita a call. 03700 100 is the number that you need on Saturday lunchtime. We always love to hear from you. But it just leaves me to say thank you so much to my panel. Thank you so much to the audience at the Village Hall on the 100th birthday. We haven't mentioned that enough. I think the celebrations will continue throughout the weekend. I'm sure you'll have a wonderful time. And thank you all at home for listening.
Any questions came from Harston Village Hall in Cambridgeshire. The presenter was Alex Forsyth, the producer was Robin Markwell, and the lead engineer Richard L. As Alex said, there's a chance to share your views next this afternoon by ringing any answers now on 03700 100 444. 03700 100 444. Anita Annan is standing by to carry on the debate live just after the news. There'll be more debate next Friday lunchtime with Anne Brennan.
Antisocial on BBC Radio 4.
We have a real problem in terms of what work is nowadays.
I don't accept the phrase reverse racism. Racism is racism.
The world is full of differing opinions. Sometimes things get out of hand.
Unfortunately, social media makes this a lot worse.
Each week, we take one subject causing arguments online, look at the issues involved, and help you work out what they're really about.
People get so worked up about the actual terms and not the actual experiences of the people.
The new series of Antisocial with me, Adam Fleming, starting next Friday at midday on Radio 4 and BBC Sounds. BBC News at 2 o'clock. The UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees says a school it runs in Gaza, where displaced people were sheltering, has been hit by an explosion. The Hamas-run health ministry has blamed the Israeli military and said at least 15 people were killed in the Jabalia refugee camp. Israel hasn't commented. The IDF has been defending another strike on an ambulance yesterday, which it says killed mass fighters. Palestinian Red Crescent said at least 15 civilians were killed by a missile from the vehicle. The US Secretary of State Antony Blinken is facing demands for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, speaking to representatives of Arab nations in Jordan. Our correspondent in Jerusalem, Mark Lowen, said Mr. Blinken is concerned the fighting will spill over.
The US Secretary of State is said to have stressed the need for the conflict not to spread elsewhere and to have expressed his deep concern to Lebanon's leaders about the exchange of fire across Israel's northern border, which intensified today. Diplomats may have failed to stop the fighting so far. They may not have been able to prompt a flood of aid, but now they're desperately trying to stop this war igniting a combustible region.
The Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, has said she wants to stop what she calls nuisance and distress caused by homeless people in tents on public streets. She said many people were living in streets and lifestyle choice. Floodwaters being pumped away in Downpatrick in County Down after nearby river levels while supervision are now planning to begin. Many local business owners have been unable to enter their premises to assess the damage caused by extremely heavy rain. Many are calling for financial help from Westminster. 2 people in Nottingham have been taken to hospital with serious injuries after a suspected American XL bully attack. Nottinghamshire police say a woman fell from the window of a flat in Mansfield when the attack began last night. And the woman has been arrested and held on suspicion of allowing the dog to be dangerously out of control. BBC News.
This is BBC Radio 4. Now it's time for Any Answers with Anita Arnold.
Ron, thank you very much. Good afternoon. Welcome to Any Answers. It's been 4 weeks since the attacks on Israeli soil. Is Israel's response in Gaza justified? Should there be a ceasefire? Should there be a humanitarian pause? Or should Israel be allowed to continue its course? 03700 100 444 is the number to call. Yesterday we heard from 3 major figures, the American Secretary of State, the Israeli leader, and the leader of Hezbollah. I wonder what you make of what they have to say. Is there a chance that this could spill over into something much bigger? What should the international community be doing? 03700 100 444. Pro-Palestinian marches are planned for Remembrance Weekend. There are marches going on this weekend too. As for next weekend, Rishi Sunak says the Senate House could be desecrated. Should the marches be banned, or is banning demonstrations inherently undemocratic? The organisers of next week's demonstrations say they have made it clear that there is no intention of marching anywhere near Whitehall out of respect for events taking place at the Senate House. Should they be going on during Remembrance Weekend at all? 03700 100 444. Elon Musk says AI is going to replace all jobs in the future. Would you welcome that, or is this something that's just in the future and dying ahead? And really some extraordinary revelations from Cambridge this week. Where does this leave your trust in the politicians? 03700 100 444. Text is 34844. Or you can tweet us for free using hashtag BBC. Most of you wanting to talk about events in the Middle East and also the issue of Brexit. Let's start with that then. Laura Johnson is calling us from Suffolk. Hello, Laura. Should marches go on during Remembrance Weekend?
Absolutely. The simplest way to put it, the best way to show respect and care is to not continue killing the women. We've got Suella Braverman. Suella Braverman is calling hate marches because it's further from the truth. Across the world there are pro-Palestinian and peace marches to demand a ceasefire, which is exactly what we need right now.
Will you stay on the line? Suzanne Bland is reporting from West London. Hello, Suzanne. Hi, Suzanne. Laura. Laura was just saying they absolutely should go ahead during Remembrance Weekend because they are peace marches.
Well, someone from my background, I was with my grandmother who was killed in the First World War. my father was killed in the Second World War. It's something very, very badly during those wars. It had a devastating effect on the family, and actually, up until 2006, I suffered, although I was born after the Second World War. Up until 2006, it wasn't a peaceful protest. On a special day, it's the most poignant day of the year when the majority of people remember the war dead and the sacrifices they've made. And people like me that's been very badly affected by that, and my family, permanently damaged by that, I think it's out of courtesy, or by all means go ahead, but still keep it on that day, and have respect sometimes for people who have suffered during the Second World War, and indeed some of them during the First World War have impacted their families. So they have to
I'm not saying goodbye, Suzanne. Okay, yeah, I'm not saying goodbye. Just come back to Laura. Laura, you heard what Suzanne says.
yeah, no, I understand that much better. The thing is, I was going to have a remember for the future, and this is the father that I'm having to pay something on. So what is the point? Remember about how can you remember and the fact that death was such a huge opinion for living? And it's really the point. They go back and take that decision to call it a lifestyle. We all over the world, we just need to I'm saying not enough men, calling the accident from a current that the BBC and a lot of media institutions have kind of allowed this to happen. However, anyone has a environment and government, they are allowed to do and that is not like that.
I mean, you've mentioned Sir Birthday stage of it is entirely unacceptable to desecrate one's to stay or pay too much through health. If it goes ahead, it faces risk of serious mental disorder, violence, and damage, as well as giving offence to the laws and duties of the British Church. Hang on, let Suzanne finish. I'll come back to you. Then we'll just take some more calls on this. Suzanne.
My father and my grandfather were actually killed at the end of the Second World War. It was hit by a fusion bomb. They were innocent civilians, but they were killed. In fact, my father couldn't identify the bodies. They were so badly damaged. The heat destroyed the home and everything, and they were all prisoners. So I am saying, please remember the civilians and the soldiers and people that were lost during the Second World War and during the First World War. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm British. And my father, my grandfather fought for this country, and my family,
Hello.
my grandmother, all my
我去邊？我揸緊車啊，做咩啊？翻我屋企啊？可以啊。你落好大雨喎，有雨喎，小心啲喎。你行大路啊，嗰啲小路應該水浸啊。啊。哦，你 OK， 拜拜拜拜。
Laura, just on that point itself, just this weekend, Suzanne said, this session of negotiations does not oppose the right to protest. She doesn't oppose the sentiment of those who feel marching, which is then just on this weekend.
Say, right, there will be no marches. Just full stop. No marches.
Marches, I'm afraid they're not peaceful marches, but I don't think it's appropriate, as one of your previous callers said, to be on Remembrance Day. Remembrance Day is about the people in this country keeping their lives.
Harry, thanks very much. Yeah, I'll just get a video of a more recent statement. They say there's going to be a sharp focus on potential criminal behaviour at protests this weekend as marches go on for the conflict in Gaza. The statement also says that Scotland Yard chiefs have said they will be using facial recognition technology to identify known suspects, including potential terrorists. What's also this? 03700 let's go to Abdul Shahid, who's calling from Derby. Abdul, Harry, our last caller, said these two flights are not peaceful. They're not peaceful, and his daughter was caught up in one and had a horrible experience. And we had somebody else, Suzanne, saying that, march, that's not objecting to your right to march, and not objecting to why you're marching, but just not this weekend, not the weekend of Remembrance Day. What do you say to that?
Sorry, I totally disagree. I went to the march last week where 100,000 people turned up. And then the previous caller said about 10% or 5%. What 10% or 5% of 100,000? 10,000 people. It was a very, very peaceful march. How many people got arrested? Not many. And obviously, it needs to stand up right now because people are being killed today, minutes, by the things that you see on TV. It's worse than the London blitz that happened in 1941.
Why, you said you went on a march. Why, what has, you clearly said, that things in Gaza are moving you to march, but what do you hope the marches will accomplish?
Well, it's to put pressure on our government, because our government have given a blank check to Israelis to do what they like. I mean, how many more Palestinians need to die? We've had 10,000 people died on one side, 1,400 on the other. Obviously, what Hamas did was totally out of order, not acceptable at all in any walks of life. But to me, every life, all lives matter. And
but just on this point again,
we have a ceasefire. Thousands more people will die every day. Do these people mean nothing to us? Are we not? These are fellow human beings. These very fellow human beings.
Like the officers lied at the end of the day, and there has to be a punishment towards that. Like, you can't accept that in the police force. Like, that shouldn't be allowed. So therefore, they lost their jobs for that. But it just I don't know, I'm still shocked by it. Like, I understand people want to help, that is fine, but the circumstances.
And that's been the reaction that these officers have had. What reaction have you had since that outcome?
I don't know, it's a tough one because I'm glad like people can see that they were lying, but it's one where we've gotten so much hate from the officers now losing their jobs. Like, we're getting blamed for them losing their jobs when they lied. They were just honest.
In what way?
People are saying that. I've had so many comments saying that like it wasn't a racist situation. Why did they lose their jobs? Because it was clear that it wasn't like racist attack. The comments of the trolling has been crazy.
That's horrific.
You know, we trolled in 2020. Now it's like 10 times worse.
Do you regret almost kind of waiving what happened in light of all the hate that you were receiving?
No, because I feel like we have a voice and we're going to use it. And there are so many people that have been stopped by the police or have been, you know, in situations where the police have been unlawful to them and haven't been able to speak up or don't have a voice or just don't have a background of where people can support them or just the financials where you can get a lawyer and take it further. We are doing this to help the next person and to help the people behind us because it's going to happen again. Sadly.
You had what happened to you back in 2020, clearly traumatic, and now you've had what happened on Wednesday with the ruling, and it's clearly impacted you. You're clearly getting negativity once again. I want to ask about the mental toll this has taken on you because you are an incredibly successful athlete. How has this impacted you being able to play the game?
When I get to the track, I've really just got to block it out and focus on what I've got to do. And when I get to the competition, I want to be successful, so I've really got to block it out. But it's when you have your downtime when you're home and you're like going on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook and you just see the messages and stuff, oh gosh, again. I just really got to block it out because I want to be the best athlete there is out there, and I can't do that with having just keep focusing on the negativity, the negative comments. I can't progress if I keep focusing on that, so I really try and block it out as much as I can.
What is next for you? You've got Paris in 2024, is that the ultimate goal?
That is definitely the ultimate goal. I went to Rio, but I didn't get to run as a part of the relay, and then I missed out on Tokyo due to pregnancy and having my son. So this time I really want to be in Paris, and I think it'll be fun.
A lot of people talk about how having a baby has impacted their careers. It sounds like you're smashing it. You're smashing your personal best having had your baby, which is brilliant.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it.
Has he been a massive motivating factor, I imagine?
Yeah, he's like the best cheerleader. He is amazing. You know, we bring him to the track and he's cheering for everyone. This year I felt so much stronger, like mentally, physically. And my confidence in athletics is just like gone to the sky. I just feel incredible. I don't know where I'd be for without Zuri. Like, I really don't know where I'd be because like he has just shown me that you are able to continue to have a baby and still progress.
Bianca Williams there. Singer, songwriter and cellist Ayana Winter-Johnson graduated with a first-class degree in classical composition at the Trinity Larvin Silver Award in 2008 and has collaborated with prestigious range of artists from Andrea Bocelli, Angelushka Shankerton Consortium and Akana. She's now joined forces with the London Symphony Orchestra percussion ensemble. Their new album, Ocean Floor, explores stories relating to Ayana's ancestral heritage, culture and identity, and blurs the boundaries between chamber music, jazz and soul. I spoke to Ayana and she began by telling me about her new record.
Really, it's a celebration of music across the African diaspora. There's elements of classical, gospel, soul, reggae. There are all these flavors that are ultimately music that I think it's a breath of fresh air because I've been able to pull out the rhythms from West Africa. I what happened in that moment, but what also has happened to many of my ancestors during the transatlantic slave trade, where I was capable, like those who were able to the album does explore that nature and family. The songs where you explain that story is the prologue of the people. So in 1761, there was a spaceship called Luzon, British spaceship that set out from Ghana to Jamaica, and 130 slaves were thrown overboard. They said there wasn't enough water on the ship, but actually there was 10 minutes war. And what happened was they claimed compensation when they came back to England. So there was a lot of financial gain in the loss of Black Lives Matter. It's a really poignant piece in the album. It makes you just stop in your tracks. I did stop. I was walking and I had to stop and just listen to you telling me this account. Yeah, and what I then found was the day the young man lost his life at the beach. At that time, there were also children playing and there was someone being baptized in the sea. And it kind of reminded me that there's always a cycle of life. There is darkness, but at the same time there's joy. And you just sort of have to open your perspective to see all those things simultaneously, which is why the ensemble was perfect to explore that. I was able to sort of really move the messages that so much David to the ensemble to ensemble, and then the music. How did you pick it? Because you do so much. You combine playing, singing, and at the previous microphone. Yeah. Tell us what you think that is radio. You'll have to describe it. So I'm standing, I'm holding my cello to the left of me, and I'm singing, and then in my right foot I have a couple, imagine like a kick drum pedal that would be in drum kit. It's attached to a drum kit. Well, I love it because I've seen you on stage on Clearly, I've seen you on your own, you have to name check all the people that you work with, because obviously you're in high demand, and it's an exquisite album. I'm going to start this album with it. Dedicated to your mum. Yeah, there's those pieces that look on the album on those September that you see when it's comes to instruments, and you can kind of get it. And so in this new Mum's Day, Hillary. Alright, Hillary. What are you going to perform for us? So, we're going to play the second part of Ocean Floor Suite. It's called Pioneers, and it's a tribute to my grandparents' generation and their legacy as part of the women's generation here. And how magnificent that you are able to do that. And it's create a piece of art that does just that. It's like your legacy or your grandparents' legacy. What a legacy it is. Here they are, performing live version of it. cellist Ayana Whitty-Johnson there with Neil Kersey on percussion from the MSN. Now happy to participate present. You can think about how home would influence your decisions. Sound worker and coach player Alex O'Brien with some music. To explore how James rules his life, he's the best actor of work and make his choices. She began by telling them how to went to science writing to
Well, I think for another time as a coach player, and I asked him to tell me how to play, and it's in my mind because, you know, contrary to very attractive to me. So it felt like an accomplishment. Absolutely, filled out every single time.
Whilst you're coming at it from an angle of it teaching you about life and teaching you new skills, there are a lot of people who I suppose get caught up in the darker side of playing a game like poker. Someone that might have a gambling addiction, for example. How do you see that issue as a poker player?
So, of course, anything addictive, what I'd like to say is, poker has a lot of good benefits that come with it. It does teach you quite self-discipline. I think any diversify their exposure, so they will swap perceptions of each other, so they will be playing that skill set, and they'll just enhance each other, so if they lose, then they win, and they get that together, so they minimize their risk, and it's not
So you speak about poker having helped you in life. How? Tell us. What are the skills you need for poker that have helped you in real life situations?
You know, I'd like to answer that question as a woman. I'm a science writer, sort of analytical thinking and questions are really added into my job description. But as a woman, you know, people watch So what it taught me was, again, self-discipline and focus, but also self-confidence. And I extend self-confidence at the confidence level that I have now got around money, around finance, around risk, is a lot higher. Also, fearlessness. I feel that I have learned how to deal with this idea of uncertainty, because it's what I was trying to. We've been conditioned to
fear that you're thinking right now. And with playing poker, you learn how to quantify the uncertainty, the unknown. It has a number, and then you allocate a risk number to it. And you do that repeatedly. And I
Model
think
P.
listeners were writing in about it, the repetition, and that is what it repeatedly exposes you to risk, making decisions around money, and also for the business exposes you to failure. And the thing about this is most of the time it's paraphrased and they lose because you have to make that kind of control. So it teaches you that although you can make the right decision, sometimes it won't work out.
How do you apply that to real life? Real life example. I mean, when it comes to money, when it comes to trying to make decisions, the right decision in the moment, how do you apply that to real life?
I think I'm a lot more zen about things.
That calms you out a bit more.
Yeah, because I'm not result oriented anymore. You learn that you must consider, keep in mind that it's a process, that the road to success isn't a single time or event, it's a process, and that is not a straight trajectory upwards. But yeah,
It's more about the journey than the destination.
absolutely.
Now, I suppose, I wonder if I'm the only one that thinks it, but when I think poker, usually I think of mostly men in quite a low-lit room, cigar smoke everywhere, male banter. Is that what it's like?
No. I mean, it can be, and that stereotype is definitely perception of it. And it's when you go and play tournaments, particularly, these are highly focused, highly determined players, especially at the higher end, high-tech players. So, no, it's a sport. It's a mind sport. It really challenges you in ways, in so many ways, in terms of emotional resilience, strategic thinking. Yeah, it's stuff in the movies, but not in real life.
And has being a woman in that male-dominated space been a detriment to your poker game? Or is it a benefit? Or is it somewhere in between?
Somewhere in between. I'm not going to lie. Misogyny and sexism still exist.
Really? Is it quite
Yeah.
in the face?
Even though I'm playing all the young now in the world, there's still the odd player that feels entitled to that space and does not like being at the table. The way it is because you're a woman. Because of my gender. Yeah. And then what they will do though is they will play really badly because they're so pleased with you. And I'll again basically teach you communication. Bide my time. That is the best way to be a man. And that must be such a challenge. It is. And okay, so you mentioned the negative days. It isn't really quite now dominated. But still, you have a daughter. I still have to play poker. I go play with her, go into that setting and become a player. Yes, absolutely. She's also a chess player, and at home we play a lot of strategic games. Do you have a TV? But usually we don't watch. Really? So your main form of Friday nights at the O'Brien household is get the board games out, and then we're going to take away and then we'll watch movies together. Okay. But yes, I have taught her how to play purely because she's a girl, she's a little girl, and I don't need parents to help me. Our fear is, we will never stop worrying about them when they grow up. So I want to give her the tools, the skill sets she needs to back us out in real life. And I want her to be fearless when it comes to, decision making. If she doesn't know what to do, and I'm not there to guide her. I want her to be absolutely confident pulling up any chair at any table, forget the poker table, our boardroom, the negotiation table, sit down.
To record issues and to identify people later, then obviously, yes, it's a person who needs to practice. So, right, we take these photographs, we analyse all the films,
later. And when we identify people that are potentially committing offences, we'll get the right legal advice, we'll speak to the Crown Prosecution Service, so when we know that we go out there and arrest them, that we will get an authoritative charge.
Briefly, the police are again facing a lot of political pressure, this time ahead of another protest in London expected next weekend on Armistice Day. Are they obliged to do as the politicians ask and ban them out?
No, absolutely not. That's the decision. Thankfully, in this country, we don't have politically controlled police. The Commissioner is operationally independent. Absolutely, he will take into account what politicians at all levels are saying from all different sides and persuasions. But ultimately, the Commissioner has to make the right decision which respects the law of protest, which recognises the strength of feeling, but at the same time, guarantees public safety. And very much they have to bear in mind, you can ban a protest. The trouble is that you have to have an operational tactic to deal with people who decide to defy that ban, potentially in large numbers. So that will be part of consideration as well. But if one can understand why protesters feel the need to comment, but when it gets down to commenting on individual phrases and words and telling the police that is against the law, isn't really helpful. And really what we do is everybody involved needs to try and calm down the emotions and try and make sure that people have the right to protest, but in a peaceful way, and absolutely in a way that doesn't break the degree of fear that particularly a lot of Jewish people are understandably complaining about.
Sir Peter Trunk, former Chief Constable for Greater Manchester Police. In the latest round of American-led diplomacy aimed at lowering the temperature of the Israel-Gaza conflict, US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken has spent the afternoon in Jordan in his Arab counterpart. Yesterday, he failed to convince the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to order a humanitarian pause in fighting to protect civilians in Gaza. Our correspondent Paul Adams is in Jerusalem. He's on the line now. Paul, first of all, what is the situation in northern Gaza today?
Well, the north gets more and more desperate all the time, Caroline. This is the focus of Israel's military campaign. Gaza City is where the Israelis think that Hamas have their main stronghold.
In 2015, he had a job in a supermarket during that time. His autism meant found the process of trying to get home overwhelmed.
I became homeless due to a sudden death of the family. My mum had a nervous breakdown. I used to fix my tent up in Sheffield City train station. It was freezing, like noises in the window, thinking that but if anyone thinks that being homeless and choosing to live in a tent is a lifestyle, then come visit someone like myself. Just for one night, for one evening, then tell me that me choosing a tent was a lifestyle. It is not.
The founder of the newspaper Big Issue, John Bird, now Nordberg, sits as an independent crossbencher in the House of Lords. He's launched an all-party parliamentary group to raise a government response to such a crisis. He's on the line now. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
What do you make of the Home Secretary's statement today?
Well, to me it's a very interesting thing because here is a social problem about people ending up on the streets and homelessness. And if you don't solve it as a social problem,
the time is still there. I think the line may have dropped. Let's just see if we can put it back again. Go on to the next story for that. During World War II, the entire nation was exalted to the victory of the continental colonies. Yet, it was Hull who became the first to join what being called the Galactic Glow. Now that of course the idea is taken up across the country. Some say that it's supposed to Hull to find out more.
Hello, Anthony. I'm at Andy Dalton's house on Brands Home, a huge housing estate in the Norfolk Fold, which was a very old house in the distance. Andy is the Church of England Social Responsibility Officer in East Riding, hopes to acquire a patch of land close to his house under the Right to Grow scheme to help build food banks in the area. How big would you say this is? It's 4 acres. You can see how long the grass is. I mean, it's a place that you might walk across as a shortcut or whatever, you might walk your dog on it, but otherwise it's not used, is it?
no, it isn't.
This is a piece of land that you would apply to use under this new scheme, but you've got your concerns.
whilst we're saying it's very good that Holly's prepared to do this, unless the council actually creates a mechanism and backs that up with sufficient time and a certain amount of support, not very much happens.
My name's Alan Root, and I'm the Development Officer for Whole Food Partnership. The Whole Food Partnership is a group of organisations who work to make sure that everyone has access to high quality, fresh, sustainable food.
It's a huge problem. We have places in things like the food deserts where you can't access affordable, decent quality fresh food.
The partnership has drawn up the motion for the right to grow, which requires local authorities to maintain a clean, accessible map for all public unused land that's suitable for community cultivation. We pay our council tax, so it's our land.
So it could be Glasgow, Walsall, or whatever, but it could be our staff saying that you couldn't necessarily opt into all sorts of different reasons, but you can raise beds on that.
So the solar. Well, one place that uses raised beds, 72 of them in fact, is rooted in Hull. It's an urban farm next to the river Hull and the city's sorting office. Martin King is the manager.
It used to be a dock, which is filled in, so underneath our feet we just have concrete, all filled with rubble. People come on the site and they can see the food growing, the shipping containers that we've got, a bakery, a kitchen, one's an art gallery.
They've been using something like the right to grow since they set up in 2015.
What we've learned here at Rooted is that these ideas, they need funding, they need some sort of structure, they need managing.
At the entrance, there's a sign that says, "Welcome to the Wonderland." Labour councillor Jill Kennett is having a cup of tea next to it. She tabled the motion after the Whole Food Partnership helped her put it together. She's pledging to make sure it does work.
We look at responding to it as a law and order thing, then all they do is they exacerbate the problem. Rather than going back and trying to address the social problem of the person. This is why, and I'm sorry to say this because I've got a bill which is going through the House in the next session, and it's calling for a Ministry of Poverty Prevention, because you get all these kind of different governments not linking their work up together. If they link their work up together, then you could drive a total poverty, which is the great driver of people onto the street, and that is not happening. And as I said to somebody earlier today,
Hello 哥哥
I've heard this on before.
你電腦玩唔玩到而家
90,
？OK，半個鐘咋，我定咗嚇。OK，
tried to say that
拜拜。
return the street to complete it comes up when elections come up.
Standard of procedure must be prepared. Thank you so much. We've heard much over the past weeks about the fighting in the Middle East, and that's the implications here. Opportunity to have some such attacks. About a decade or so ago, you were making remarks to the issue of the city. Also, co-founded
We've always put friendship at the heart of it, and actually said to people, don't create a friendship just based on what's happening in that part of the world. And of course, at the moment, we're all very, very like it. Stuff like this travels, it really matters to both these communities in particular. I'm seeing a different picture, actually. I'm seeing people who, doing this on in other spaces, thought they had friendship and thought they had the trust between each other, but this situation is very, very different to them. I've also seen, though, other people who perhaps haven't ever even delved into this kind of work actually saying to me, it's really interesting to me that you're doing this right now, you're bringing the traces, as it were, trying to keep hold of these relationships. I'd really like to know more about that, and maybe it's something I want to get more information about. So I think for me, actually, the little glimmers of hope, the connections that people have with each other, the hand-holding, all of that is happening despite how difficult it is.
And they actually both notice the rise of indications of healing based on religion, based on what's happening in the Middle East. Your story first.
Yeah, well, the figures are horrendous, really. Those anti-Semitism and anti-Islamophobia through the group in a way that is so very, very upsetting. And I think one of the things that
the thing that we can agree on, we may not agree on the politics, what's going on in Israel, Gaza, but we do agree that our streets need to be safe. And I think this is again where women come in. That women tend to be the carers, mothers, sisters, and what we want more than anything else is safe streets. We want our children to go out and play. We don't want fear at home. And this conflict is being exported from the Middle East to our streets in a way that is really quite scary. And this, again, is where the women can come in. We can hold each other and say, this is real. We have to stop the hate taking hold here.
Reverend says that hate speech and anti-Semitism in the UK is going unchallenged, even worse by the impact of some shouted out. He said out loud at some of the pro-Palestinian protests.
I think that the Chief Rabbi is right. There is a lot of fear in the Jewish community, and the level of hate towards Israel, which spills over usually into anti-Semitism, do really genuinely frighten people. And this generation, which is you, even I, doesn't feel comfortable, it doesn't feel right. I think that sometimes we don't do it on purpose, sometimes we don't really understand where to tip the balance. Where to tip the balance, to be clear, is when you start talking about the government of Israel and start talking about its right to be king. And that's when you really egg into anti-Semitism and really frighten people, really chanting, which we are hearing way too much of, which is full of hate very often. And I really think people would understand how to start this routine and that to put ourselves in this people's shoes, we have to be allies, we have to understand how things will do.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one. I've got the question actually from the government that you are calling all of these markets big markets. So I don't think that's very helpful to use that sort of language. I know people prefer it's kind of disheartening. How do we navigate all of that? It feels almost impossible sometimes, frankly, when you're talking about the numbers that we're talking about. But there's no doubt here that creating is not okay. Of course it's not okay. That then comes out wrong. Hatred comes out of each other. You know, you've got good people who are saying very bad things. Something has gone wrong there somewhere. And we need that education and that understanding. It can only actually happen if people talk to each other.
More remarks for this session. That's all from us here at FFAPM. Studio Director today, Vicky Brown. Our producers for this Caroline was Kat Thompson. I'm Caroline White. Have a very good rest of your weekend. Thank you, Caroline Newton. Now on Radio 4 Political Thinking with Nick Robinson.
Hello and welcome to Political Thinking, a conversation with, rather than a newsy interrogation of, someone who shaped our political thinking about what shapes theirs. The crisis in the Middle East is being felt deeply here at home, dividing communities, families, and in particular the Labour Party. Keir Starmer stood up for Israel's right to defend itself, when a growing number in his party want him to stand up to Israel and to tell them to stop bombing Gaza. Advising the Labour leader as his election campaign coordinator and backroom fixer is a man who's been described as the most powerful Labour politician that most have never heard of. He's Pat McFadden, the veteran of Tony Blair's Downing Street, who has, as a result, almost always succeeded in the fall. Pat McFadden, welcome to Political Thinking, joining us from your office in your Wolverhampton constituency. Good to see you.
Good to be here.
We're all watching horrors abroad, but also deepening divisions at home. I just wonder how concerned you are about those divisions.
Well, people have strong feelings about this issue. Anyone watching this will just be horrified by what took place on October 7th. That mass killing of Israeli civilians, and understanding not just the anger but the fear and trauma that will have resulted.
armed response to the situation. And that was going to mean that Palestinian civilians would also suffer. So we've had these appalling deaths over the last few weeks playing out. So I understand the fear and trauma that has resulted in playing out in our own community, and I understand the impulse to make it stop. But I have a sense of perspective too about the real world impact that any politician in the UK and opposition politicians perhaps in particular can have on this situation.
In other words, do you think there's a danger?
And if we try to make sure that this can't just be repeated once a certain period of time has elapsed. And one of the things that's been missing from the debate so far has been the question, what comes after? What then? Because we can't just go back to the status quo that we had where every few years there was an outbreak. Now the thing that happened on October the 7th was far more of an outbreak, that mass slaughter that took place. But we can't just go back to people picking up the pieces and seeing if they can start again after a period of time. So one of the great sadnesses for me is there has been no impetus behind any kind of business process for years. And I think to change that is going to require real political leadership from Israel, from the Palestinians, from neighbouring countries, from the United States. This is where I think the United Kingdom can play a constructive role and can put what international weight it has behind trying to revive such a process so that we don't just go back to the status quo, and that after the current armed conflict is over, that you have a future where Israel feels more secure and doesn't think it can be subject to such an attack again, but also a future that offers more hope to the Palestinian people, because the fact is that before October the 7th, they were living in pretty terrible circumstances, and that's got worse since.
There's a present, there's a future, there's also a past. As I said when I introduced you, you were very good at advising the President, Secretary of Opposition and the just feel at times like you used this movement before. You stood with it, over the invasion of Iraq, and said, and when Israel attacked Lebanon back in the summer of 2006, and he said then that they were right to defend themselves. And many people then objected to that. What do you learn from those lessons? Really about how these divides can be managed rather than the historical detail of who was right and who was wrong at the time.
I think a leader should begin by setting out what they think is right, and not, the starting point shouldn't be how do I avoid a division in my party because I know there's different opinions about this. Now, you will say to me, come on, in the real world of politics, you've got to worry about those things. Yes, but it shouldn't be the starting point. The starting point should be what is the right thing here. Leaders have to start from the first principle of what's going to happen here.
Now, the nature of these interviews on political thinking is we do drag our guests back to their past, if not just to the political past. Let's talk about how you got involved in the Labour Party. When you grew up in Scotland, when you grew up in Glasgow, did you grow up in a political family where the debates over breakfast, over tea, about politics?
Not in a big way. My parents were from Donegal in Ireland, who were native here. And they came, like a lot of Irish people, after the Second World War. The times were very difficult in Ireland, with much work, and things a lot. Then they got married and had a discussion. And the discussion was, when we immigrated, the options were to go to America, or some people went to Australia or Canada as well, but mainly America or the UK. And my mum didn't want to go to America. My dad was quite keen on it, because he already had a couple
the brothers and sisters, and we decided to come to Glasgow instead. So I could have grown up with a Brooklyn accent. There was 7 of us, I'm the youngest of 7 children. We grew up in a very normal working class household. My dad was a labourer on building sites. My mum worked the night shift in a local authority children's home. We went to mass on Sundays. We did what we could at school, and I'm still really close with my family.
Was a part of the religion, or rather not the religion, but a religion, support for the Labour Party too?
They're all Labour voters. Yes, they stuck with Labour even through the rise of nationalism in Scotland.
That's interesting because you're from the west of Scotland. You talk about your Catholicism. You are, of course, working class. And it was that description of a type of voter who abandoned the Labour Party in recent years and switched almost en masse to supporting the SNP instead. When you look back at that, what went wrong? Why was it that voters like your family, if not your family themselves, decided Labour was no longer there?
It happened very quickly after the referendum of 2014. If you go back to the 2010 election, Labour won about 40 seats in Scotland. And once you have the referendum, it's this enormous swing. If you know what happened, Labour was reduced to one MP, my good friend Ian Murray in Edinburgh South. And that dominance of the SNP has really lasted since then. What all the factors behind it were, I can't say. I've lived in England for a long time, but certainly the moment that it happened was the aftermath of the referendum. And since then, we've had a decade of dominance from the SNP. And then, we've had, 5, 6 Scottish Parliament general elections since then. Whether the Rutherglen by-election will change that or not, time will tell.
Wasn't it that many working class Scots came to the view that Labour did not practice as they would have wanted to protect it from an English Tory party? They've concluded that the way to avoid living under another Thatcher era, as you did when you grew up, or indeed the last 30 years, was to vote for an independent Scot.
Well, it does matter what the question is in the voter's mind. I think that's a good point. And if the question is about independence, that makes a big difference to the voting.
Understand the complexity. You mentioned your love of Celtic as your football team. Even there's no escape, is there? Celtic have an Israeli player. Some of the fans at Celtic have flown Palestinian flags to indicate whose side they're on. He feels alienated by that. It feels as though this divide is spreading everywhere.
Yeah, and I don't think it is a matter of taking a side. I think that's too simplistic. Why is it not possible to say that after all the history, Israel has a right to exist, has a right to a stable and secure future, and Palestinians also have a right to have a state? That is also true. Why should people feel they have to pick between those two things? Perhaps, especially in the social media age, you're instantly pushed to pick a side, and it's hard to find the common ground. I think the search for the common ground is an essential duty of leadership.
What's striking is despite all the pressure Keir Starmer was topped, but despite the resignation of councillors, despite some council leaders calling on Keir Starmer to quit, Pat McFadden isn't budging. He says the lesson learned from Tony Blair is that leaders have to stick to what they believe is right. The Gaza crisis is very likely, sadly, to get worse there. Political crisis, the opposition crisis, might as a result of
Political Thinking is produced by Daniel Kramer. Now, a radio Should forecast issued by the Met Office on behalf of the Maritime Coast Guard Agency at 1:75 on Saturday the 4th of November. There are warnings of gales in Humber, Thames, Dover, White, Portland, Plymouth, Thistle, Trafalgar, Fitzroy, Seoul, Dundee, Fastnet, Shannon, Cayley, and South East Iceland. The general synopsis of the day. Low Dundee 960, expect German flight 9715 tomorrow. Low Fehra 966, expect Bailey 97 by same time. Area forecast for the next 24 hours. Viking north of 0, southeasterly 4 to 6, showers, good. South of 0, southeasterly 4 to 6, backing easterly 5 to 7, showers, good. Northwest 40s, easterly 4 to 6, showers, good. Southeast 40s, Cromarty 4, variable 4, showers, good. Time, Dogger, east backing northwest later 4 to 6, occasionally 7 in far south, thundery showers, good, occasionally poor. Fisher, southeast backing east 4 to 6, thundery showers, good, occasionally poor. German Bight, southeast becoming cyclonic 5 to 7, thundery showers, good, occasionally poor. Humber, Thames, cyclonic 6 to gale 8, becoming west 5 to 7, perhaps gale 8 later, thundery showers, good, occasionally poor. Dover, White, southwest veering northwest 5 to 7, occasionally gale 8 at first, squally showers, good, occasionally poor. Portland, Plymouth, southwest 5, sunny and a little bit lighter tonight, very fine. On Sunday's forecast then, and generally speaking it is a day of sunny spells and showers. I suspect the majority of the morning showers will be across eastern areas of Scotland and on the eastern side of England, but as we head through the day, showers break out pretty much everywhere, and some of them can be quite heavy, but at least they shouldn't pass through with brisk westerly winds in most areas. Now temperatures will be highs of around 10 to 13 degrees Celsius, with the winds generally going in the westerly northwesterly direction. Those temperatures a little bit below average towards the north. Thanks Chris Fox, BBC Weather Centre. So, just before the 6 o'clock news, let's take a moment to hear from Lauren Menard about tomorrow morning's edition of Desert Island Discs.
My castaway this week is the singer and musical star, Lena Salunga.
I try to make my brain do the equivalent of, you ever see the movie Men in Black, where there's that thing, and to make them forget the memory zapper, exactly. So I kind of do that, because you cannot give an identical performance from the night before, even if you do the exact same thing. It's not going to be Groundhog Day.
My castaway, Lena Salunga, on Desert Island Discs, tomorrow morning at 11:15.
BBC News at 6 o'clock. This is Andrew Peach. Good evening. Jordan and Egypt have used a news conference with America's top diplomat to demand an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, but Antony Blinken said that would only help Hamas. Ukraine's President Zelensky has said the war between Israel and Hamas is taking the focus away from the conflict in his country. Homelessness charities have criticised the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, after she announced plans to stop people pitching tents on the street. In sport, England have been knocked out of the Cricket World Cup. Representatives of Arab nations meeting in Jordan have told the visiting US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, there must be an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Speaking at a joint news conference in Amman, Jordanian Foreign Minister Ayman Sabri condemned the attacks by Hamas on Israel on the 7th of October, but he said rage shouldn't be allowed to destroy the lives of millions of people. Mr. Blinken repeated the call he made yesterday in Tel Aviv for humanitarian pauses in the fighting in Gaza, which was rejected by the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Our North America correspondent Anthony Zerka has been travelling with Mr. Blinken and sent this report from Amman.
Both the Egyptian Foreign Minister Samad Shokri and his Jordanian counterpart emphatically called for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Mr. Safadi said that while nobody in their right mind would belittle the pain Israelis felt because of the attack by Hamas, continued military action would not bring the region security, and it would not bring the Israelis peace.
We cannot allow The swore to undermine all that has been done to bring about just peace. Very good. That every missile unleashed in Gaza and every killing on the Palestinian side resulted in children in a sea of hatred that will define to come.
Anthony Blinken reiterated U.S. support for Israel taking action to ensure its security. He insisted that military action could not simply halt at this point.
Ceasefire now. This is the last in place. According to Iran 27. And Iran said I worked for it just 2 days ago. A senior Hamas official said that it was their intent to do October 7th again and again and again.
Mr. Blinken stressed that a series of localized humanitarian pauses in military action would be a more effective way of ensuring the distribution of aid to Palestinians and creating the conditions for hostages to be released. All three men were united on one point, that permanent peace in the region ultimately hinge on Palestinian statehood.
With his assessment of the meeting with Jordan on fighting in Gaza, here's our correspondent in Jerusalem, Paul Adams.
As we shuttle around the region, Anthony Blinken is trying to minimize the humanitarian consequences of Israel's relentless assault on Hamas. Americans believe they've persuaded Israel to allow more aid into the Gaza Strip, and they continue to emphasize that Israel should do everything in its power to minimize civilian casualties. But on the ground, war has its own momentum. Today, the Israeli military released a video showing combat engineers blowing up Hamas tunnels. Israel is pushing further and further into Gaza City, which it regards as a stronghold of Hamas. Several hundred thousand civilians remain in the north. Israel is still trying to persuade them to get out of the way. Those that don't, won't, or can't are still being caught up in desperate scenes. At a crowded UN school in the Jabalia refugee camp where civilians have been sheltering, Palestinians said an Israeli airstrike killed more than a dozen. Bombs were falling on, said Sadia. People are cutting to pieces. We want a ceasefire, please. We're exhausted. Today, Israel said the main road south from Gaza City would be open for 3 hours for anyone wanting to leave. It's not clear how many Palestinians were willing to try, but the army said Hamas gunmen attacked Israeli troops on the road and accused Hamas, not for the first time, of trying to stop people from leaving. There were also problems at the Rafah crossing, with reports suggesting no more foreign nationals were allowed to leave Gaza. It seems Hamas wanted Egypt to admit more wounded people, possibly including its own fighters, before letting any more foreigners.
Tens of thousands of protesters have joined rallies in dozens of towns and cities across the UK to call for an end to Israeli military action in Gaza. In London, demonstrators marched to Trafalgar Square. The Metropolitan Police said 11 people had been arrested, including one for displaying a placard that could incite hatred. Our correspondent Aruna Iyengar was at the protest in central London and sent this report.
The Metropolitan Police say around 30,000 protesters converged in central London at Trafalgar Square. There were families and people of all ages and faiths, including some from the Jewish community. Most had a message of peace. Police said there would be a sharp focus on potential hate crime, and they would
people not being able to access a home they can afford.
The Lib Dem Home Affairs spokesman Alistair Carmichael called it grim politics from a desperate Conservative government, while Labour's Deputy Leader Angela Rayner said the government should take responsibility for the housing crisis rather than blame homeless people.
Water has been pumped away from the streets of Down District and County Down after torrential rain caused flooding. Business owners are calling for financial support for repairs and stock losses. Our correspondent Louise Cullen sent this report from Downpatrick.
A little under 15 hours after the pump started work, the water disappeared and the street cleaners moved in. Shutters were lifted and the damage became clear. The force of the flood had torn shelves from the walls, knocked over equipment like large refrigerators, and Christmas stock had been strewn across the sodden floors. Shop owners like Willa McCartney are counting the cost.
It's just we have another shop just a couple of doors up, a sports shop. We make it into today. I don't think I'm going to do this one today, but it's
really heartbreaking, but the creators, I have to say, are amazing. The opposite are both up to stop.
My daughter shopkeepers here and credit and credit. She's calling for financial help. But with no default budget instrument, they'll have to hope the Northern Ireland Office of Investment for their assistance will be heard.
A yellow rain warning remains in place for large parts of southern England, south of central London and the coast of Weymouth to Dover until midnight. It appears rainfall could trigger more flooding around coastal rivers already saturated. Croatia's foreign minister has sparked controversy after trying to kiss his German counterpart, Annalena Baerbock. They were posing for a photo during the summit in Berlin, where Jessica Parker reports.
Thursday, but videos only widely emerged in the last 24 hours. Germany's Annalena Baerbock can be seen taking her place for a photo photograph with fellow European ministers. As the host, she's in the middle among other mostly male colleagues. That's when Croatia's representative, Gordon Radman, takes her hand and leans in. When Baerbock turned her head away and slammed quickly on her cheek. In Croatia, Mr. Radman faced accusations of acting inappropriately. He's reported to apologise if anyone saw anything bad in the kiss, but suggested it was meant as a cordial greeting. Annalena Baerbock has responded.
England's defence of their Cricket World Cup title is over, with 2 games of group stage remaining. With that and the rest of today's sport, here's John Wilkinson. England's 33rd run defeat to Australia in Ahmedabad means the defending champions can't reach the Cricket World Cup semi-finals. It was their 2nd loss of the tournament and 5th in a row. Captain Josh Butler admits they've left the
Still having the same shot after every game at the minute. Improvements again today, getting more like the stuff we can play, but still short of it. To lose by 30 odd, plenty of ways we can find those 30 runs we needed.
Newcastle are hosting Arsenal in the Premier League this evening, and Rob Schofield has the latest.
4 minutes to half-time, Newcastle 0, Arsenal 0. Lively game played at a high tempo with half chances at both ends. And as you can hear, this home crowd are not happy. Just in yellow cards for Cher, Longstaff and Gordon for dissent after a reckless challenge from Kai Havertz, who's also in the book. But as we approach half-time, it's goalless from James's Park.
In the lunchtime kick-off, Manchester United were late 1-0 winners over Fulham. Manchester City thrashed Bournemouth 6-1. Sheffield United are celebrating their first 3 points of the campaign after beating Wolves 2-1. There were also wins for Brentford and Crystal Palace, whilst Everton and Brighton drew. In the Scottish Premiership, the leaders Celtic won 3-0 at Ross County. Kilmarnock beat Motherwell. It's currently Hibernian 0, Aberdeen 0 in their semi-final of the Scottish League Cup, whilst the Chelsea manager Emma Hayes is to leave the Women's Super League club at the end of the season. To rugby union, Wales have beaten the Barbarians 49-26 in Cardiff, with the retiring Lee Halfpenny scoring with all his kicks. And England's women have become the first ever WXV1 champions, overcoming New Zealand in Auckland. John Wilkinson. David Berglas, one of the most influential magicians of the 20th century, has died. He was 97. In a career spanning several decades, he made regular appearances on British television and advised on films including Octopussy and Tim Burton's Batman. But he was most renowned for inventing what's considered the holy grail of magic tricks. Alfie Tobert looks back at his life.
He was known as the International Man of Mystery, the first magician to have his own show on British television with Meet David Berglas in 1954. It was followed up by The Mind of David Berglas in the 1980s.
But remember, for the next 45 minutes, nothing is impossible.
The programme saw him perform in front of a studio audience and entertain celebrity guests, including Omar Sharif, Britt Eklund, and Christopher Lee.
You have a kind of it's a sort of force, something you have, isn't it? This extraordinary force, call it whatever you like, comes through you, and it can be either good or bad.
It's, in my case, if you know how to quickly and a little force control, it's a mixture of everything. His tricks included making objects float in midair, making a grand piano disappear, and even driving a car around London while blindfolded. But he's most famous for the Berglas effect, where he'd ask one spectator to name a card and another a number. When he'd flip through a deck, he'd stop at the specified number and pull out the second card. Between 1989 and 1998, David Berglass served as the president of the Magic Circle, a role recently taken on by his son Marvin. He said his father's mysteries had not only baffled audiences, but also his peers. The headlines again. The foreign ministers of Jordan and Egypt told a news conference they want an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Speaking alongside them, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken said that would only help Hamas. Fierce fighting has continued in Gaza, with the United Nations saying a school of guns has been hit by an airstrike. Homeless charities have criticised the Home Secretary, Stella Braverman, when she announced plans to stop people pitching tents on the street. Just ahead of loose ends, here's Paddy O'Connell, best broadcast the past tomorrow morning. Good evening, we'll be live with the American and launching new series on community school distributor. Teenagers have their teachers being sought for their beauty called artificial intelligence. The kid's speech is next week. We'll have a listen to the dogs. Our headline is Hey Baby, Water John Campbell, and Man with the Block. Plus we hear from a 97-year-old botanist Flowers at Teestown. The H is on BBC Sounds and here on Radio 4 tomorrow morning. Paddy O'Connell. As Paddy mentioned, King Charles will be taking part in his first state opening of Parliament as monarch this coming week. Ahead of that, and also to coincide with Guy Fawkes Day, he'll be in Westminster tomorrow morning for Sunday worship. With the Parliament choir marking the state opening and done to the pot, the service at Methodist Central Hall, Westminster. Sunday worship is at 8:10 evening, and now time for Loose Ends with Madison. Yes, thank you. Hello, welcome to Loose Ends, Radio 4's tip-top talk show. Coming in this week from where the East Riding of Yorkshire meets the north side of the Humber, Dexter Von Hull. Yes, here we are. Here around Hull, the distinctively named Brecon Wall Arts Centre, and playing the large chain and metal wall to my neighbour Miley Cyrus is this week's co-host, Cody Smiles. It's an unhappy image, I know. Presenter of Radio Humberside Breakfast programme, then, Cody. Who do you think was here on today? Well, I just think it was full, a fresh, full tank. Obviously, with a Fairfield Mexican glass, I definitely way more than normal. That's what I was going to say before. Wasn't herself not only once, not twice, but thrice on Miss Got Talent. Now, I thought the whole point of that show wasn't to get people all, but hopefully, we are getting to feel with the madness and the magic. Full board member of the Magic Circle, magician, performer, all round the world. Excellent. Looking forward to that. Now, for our other guests in return, we have a famous son of Hull, champion of Northern Theatre, actor and artistic director, Barry Rutter, who this weekend is taking part in Perfection of a Kind in the City of London Symphonia. The playwright Richard Bean comes to Hull as well. His latest play, The Hammer to Hold, is not far from here, in the village of Whack-Whack, to be precise. Although as advertised, so the production a couple of days ago, but he was West village of Wisconsin. Either way, Richard will be telling us all about these two shapes of a wet-whack. Dear Brotherhead is also a Kingstonian, or Halentian, which term you prefer, and she stars in the TV comedy series Hull Raisers, which is returning to Hull and to Channel 4 for a second series this month. And if that weren't enough guests for around these parts, we have music from the folk singer and fiddle player Liza Cartney, who actually away to Scarborough. But it's good to have her over here. And from Hull, the rapper and grime artist Kedu Araka. Ladies and gentlemen, the guests. So, we're going to start with the award-winning playwright, Richard Bean, who's many successes in theatre, through One Man, Two Wonders, Great Britain, Jack Absolute Flies Again, and the film Youth. His latest play, The Hammer to Hold, is on stage now, starring Alan Armstrong and Marion Bailey, playing an elderly couple living rather grumpily together in the village of Whack-Whack. The play begins with the arrival from London or the tragedies of their son, and in due course their health. I'm not suggesting it's all about that, but there are lots of elements of your life in that you didn't have to do as well. Your parents did Whack-Whack. His helmet on because you call like on his passenger, of course, gets killed by the superintendent. So yeah,
what about the other, the stuff coming over? This is something brought up in Hull, gone off drinks and sauce, London, I think, in American world to play. Is that you? Is that your feeling about going home?
It is me, but I thought, oh God, I've got to make him, pretentious and a bit of an idiot as well. So
well, that's not you. You're not a pretentious idiot.
Well, no,
which of those are you?
Well, I am both a pretentious and a bit of an idiot. And why I have to exaggerate myself, the obsession with red wine, fine with it, and all that kind of stuff, in order to distance the character from me. And it's quite a difficult one, because he is the character in the way that people like East, I would say. But creates distance between you and the place as well.
But you're a very prolific player. More plays than Alan Moore, Reed Shakespeare, Ernie White. But you started fairly late, getting playwright. Was it 40 you were? 42, actually.
Yeah. I mean, there's a story there, because I'd written this play about the bakery I used to work in down Wheeler Street, the Spiller's Wonderloaf Bakery. And
we've got a bit of a sound effect there. It sounds like something going by on the street. In fact, that's what it sounds like. Yes, yeah.
No, so I wrote this play about the night shift at the Albion. I thought, can I send it to Barry Rutter, and he's got the North Broadside every time. I wrote to Barry, I didn't send him the play, I wrote to him and said, Dear Barry Rutter, of Mrs. And I said, if you'd be interested in reading, this is my first play, it's horror, it's now working. And he wrote back and he said, it's about two terrorists sharing a flat. No. And that was on a postcard. So that was a great starting point.
Yeah, I didn't realise there was a bitter memory, but Barry's looking suitably poker face actually.
It elevates Barry to the classical, rather than the working man. That's my brief to the Arts Council. I was also playing a series of venues which were Chapel Market, Mills, Proscenium Market, and a sort of two-hander, which I was alluding to, would not go in those sort of places.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to have to keep you apart, obviously, and never that
Can we keep the correction in, please? That's why I know it. Did it come as a shock to the system? It was 6 months on Broadway, sold out, box office records and everything, and you're still a playwright that gets ignored in the room. Being the playwright, you still end up as, everyone's it's still the guy
and just for one more question, because what do you like in writing? You're aware that the director and the cast and all, are you there saying, oh, I want to change that line, or
yeah, I watch everything, and I take notes, and the following day we rewrite the bits, and it goes in, and I'm very precise about full stops and commas, especially with comedy, full stops, very fussy and when I went out to the director, it's just like a house party for 7 weeks. I did not know how to his director you can see.
all right, well, you obviously know the right place, so thank you very much to Hammond of Old at London's Hampstead Theatre until the 25th of November. Thank you very much, Richard B. I resisted the temptation to call you Mr. B, but anyway, it was good to have you on. You see now from the multi-award-winning musician in life, multi-MBE, who was born in Scarborough, as I mentioned, into a famous folk singing family. She started performing in public, I think, when you were 13, and you've been singing, playing fiddle, and performing more or less ever since, collaborating with a variety of family, friends, fellow musicians. So is that
well, something like 30 years as a folk musician. Is there anything else you ever were tempted to do?
I never wanted to be in prison.
No. You'll run away to become a lawyer or
I
something.
thought I was going to be a writer, actually. That's what I grew up thinking. And then,
Don't tell me you sent something to Barry and he rejected you as well. It's going to get embarrassing.
but, you know, we haven't made any eye contact since we came here, so I... but no, and then I just got the music club. So, yes, I love the idea of the continuity of traditional music and multi-generational music passing stuff down to families, that kind of thing. So.
You do traditional songs, but also new compositions and new adaptations. Yeah. And I think you're releasing a new album coming up for Christmas with John Bowden.
Yes, that's right. It's called Glad Christmas Comes. We're about to go on the road. We're on the road from the 9th of November with a tour called The Wassail. It's a two-hander, but there are select venues. There'll be brass bands, Morris dancers, and various idiots joining us. So for laughs, it's going to be good. It's going to be really fun.
All right, now you're going to perform for just you today.
That's right.
Yes, so what are you going to do?
This is our current single. It's called Beautiful Star of Bethlehem, and it's originally recorded by Ralph Stanley and Stanley Willis.
Okay, well, so we did that.
I went past Columbus Street, No, that was related to my nothing wet before the street family.
Let's come now to the actor, artistic director, of course, of nature, Barry Rutter, who apart from appearing in any number of stage and TV productions, founded, formed and directed the Gordon Broadsides Theatre Company for the 25 years it was based in Halifax, which is way over in West Yorkshire past here. Your aim was to make sure the northern voice and northern accent served properly in British theatre. And you explained something to me recently, Barry. You thought that the Yorkshire accent was particularly good at doing Greek drama.
Ancient Greek has very short vowels and iron, limestone, granite, and that is best. That's what the northern voice is. And it's a great travelling language. Don't forget the ancient Greeks performed in a mass. And if you say bar and la and ra in a mass, and I was in the Oresteia at the National Theatre in the 80s where we did the whole work of Aeschylus in mass. If you say it in posh, you just shake the mass. It just happens. So that's why Tony Harrison wrote it to a voice of Northern.
Yes, and you were one of that bunch of performers. So you started life here in Hull, and I don't think it was a challenging upbringing, I think you'd say, but not much in terms of literature and drama and acting in the background.
The news of the world, the Daily Mail, and Tidbit house was a two-house, and I had to share a bedroom with my dad when I was 18, and it was no fun.
One of these days you'll do anything, but one of the things you did was actually,
Yes, it was. I got on the stage, and I found I was good at it. I'm not talking about talent, I'm talking about in a school hall in the late 50s, early 60s, with 8 lads, and I knew where everyone was. I was good with props, I was good at being on the stage.
What about your voice? Could you project well as a...
Well, I'm just guessing. I told my 3 daughters that if they gave me a gravestone, I want on the back of it, they heard me at the back.
And you got going over with the National Youth Theatre, but then you went and studied drama in Glasgow.
Well, there was a trunk service between Hull and Glasgow, lorries, so I could get up there for 10 and 6 instead of being out 7 and 6 from Leeds on the train.
Yes.
So I chose the lorry,
Yeah.
and I chose Glasgow.
Yeah. So that got you going, and I mentioned obviously Northern Broadside, which was a passion project of yours.
Well, it was the last 20 years up to 18 when I resigned, because the arts now are being made to do social engineering. That's what the arts are being made to do. We call it transparency. It's rubbish. That is utter dudding. The arts are being made to do social engineering. It's not our responsibility. And I saw that, and that's why I resigned from the company that I set up for 25 years, from 92 to 2018.
Yeah. But that's, you carried on with your acting career
As you well know, Clive, we were in a play earlier this year.
We were in a play together, which was that is my acting career, that play, but we shared a dressing room, which sounds very intimate, but all the actors shared the same dressing room. It wasn't a big deal.
There were 5 actors in our one dressing room.
But I learned a lot from it.
Well, it was a pleasure to be there. It was good fun. We had a lot.
Yeah. But in addition to acting in theatre a lot, but also on screen in various ways, you also direct. And you were telling us about going to
Estonia. They wrote to me, I got a letter from the National Theatre of Estonia, and they said, would you like to direct a Shakespeare play? And I just sent back one word, when? and I directed Richard III in Estonia. And I knew from what the actors were doing that this was a very stilted old version, so I commissioned a new one. But, halfway through rehearsals, I had a heart attack in Estonia. Rushed upstairs, given a stent, and I've never been fitter.
As far as I know, you had a heart attack, but you carried on anyway. Directing, you didn't. Nothing could stop you directing.
I didn't know what it was, because it wasn't the sort of Hollywood heart attack with up the left arm and across. It was right across the top of the back. And for 4 days, I was still working until my designer said, well, let's go. We went to the clinic. The clinic said upstairs straight away. The surgeon said, I'm going to do it now. And he went through the femoral artery, and then he said, he got in the heart, and he said, now, Mr. Rutter, I've got to take this occluded blood away, and it's not a 5-minute job. And I said, well, that's fine, Doc, because the buttons are shut. And he did exactly what you did. He laughed, and then he lifted his arms up very, very solemnly and said, Mr. Rutter, don't make me laugh. I'm in your heart.
But you couldn't resist anyway.
I watched it all on the screen. It was wonderful. I watched it all on the screen.
Yeah. And now the other thing I should mention is your inspiration, your idea to cast Lenny Henry as Othello.
Yes, indeed. He's very generous in saying I helped him find his 6th gear, because he was approaching 50. He was looking really to change his life. He was already doing an Open University course in screenwriting. And
show, I had the bulletin board, and
Yes, me and my husband did this with the and I still don't know if it's happening or not. We're still together, so that's one thing. So I just been together with Mark, and we're going to do that. And just thought, it's a weird dynamic, but it's magic, and I we tried to sort of get our married license holder to make sure let's all kick around that. But during the thing we wake up one morning and say, I don't think we made the right decision, I think we decided to continue. Sticking point.
Hello，你好嗎？你點啊？
Absolutely, I'm very
Oh.
thrilled now.
Okay.
I've seen my husband perform and I'm
係啲樓房。
Oh, but at the end of our
佢唔
journey,
舒佢唔舒服咩？佢唔舒服啊？ 佢喊啊定係點啊？ 我想問係咪仲未食嗰啲加肥嗰啲 vegetable？ 食咗啊？哦點啊？你覺得點啊？麻麻地，即係唔會再食。
There's loads of comedy clubs and things that doesn't really have that bad value that
咁哥哥有冇食嗰個肉粥嗰隻？
and I thought, what is the one thing that terrifies me about it? And it was get fuzzy. And I came up with this great idea of do you know what I'm going to do?
咁即係抌咗啊？
I go down to the kitchen,
食唔到啊？
and then I take one more, and then I just buzz myself.
咁下次唔好要咯。
So I sort of stole them, but buzz myself. And put it on the line a little bit, press the button there, and take out the job. The thing you don't really say.
哥哥點啊？
Like, I was not expecting it to be that well. But it sort of works backwards from there, really. I sort of had the overall interview with my and it all sort of like,
the power. Honestly, as people that are here, how do you get more with that? Perceptive, magic skill, writing, peaceful. That's what you say.
yeah, I think it's a bit like comedy, like that was a bit of a comedy, but more and more female than through. And I think magic is a high-profile female magician. They just haven't been in it. But if anyone's listening, I'm available.
I've got one more question. Some of the things going on, working sales, very transparent, the pilot was the pilot, and this is like, where does that mental come from? How do you know, this is why this is a try this.
I've got absolutely no idea where it comes from. I think it's been every other job that I've had, I've probably never picked it. It wasn't really my decision, so I only chose to stay home. But I'm a husband. I never met anyone involved in it when I started. Like, I went to do one gig before the music, but yeah, it's like 2 gigs before the start. And I did it, and I did my first gig. You get paid to do this. Like, what is going on? And Fire sort of liked it, and I was like, right, I'm going to do it because I had to become a magician and make it my career, and that's the only time I've ever had to do it in my life. So it's just
Well, guys, thank you very much. Cat is performing at the Full Comedy Festival tonight. Festival runs until the 19th of November. Cat's also performing from grime and rap artist Chedu Oraka, who is having a pretty good year, as I've analysed it. He just completed his first headline tour, earlier performed at the Great Escape Festival twice. He's signed up as a showcase artist for next year's South by Southwest in Austin, Texas. And Chedu, you've notched up plenty of success with your singles on Spotify, streaming. Was there a big grime and rap scene here in Hull when you were growing up?
I mean, me and Tony, yeah, I mean, we relate to that character very much. I mean, I actually broke into the same BTEC Performing Arts course at my college. We would have done the same trajectory. So, yeah, it's all very
And then you got a scholarship or bursary on radio as well.
Yes, that was my first job. It was a thing called Pout Pubs, which when you were a drama student, you could then audition for. And then you won a contract to do all the BBC radio dramas, which was great. It was so good when you're like 21 and you sat in the big room with all, you know, Harriet Walters, Derek Jacobi, all these amazing actors in the room. It was like something else that I was so online.
So
beard blood.
Yeah. And I've seen the first couple of episodes of this series. Is it going to build to a climax at the end? Are you going to get a big role at the end? Give us a little bit of a sneak.
In the day's other matches, there were wins for Manchester United, Brentford, Crystal Palace, and Chelsea.
And our Radio 4 Stephen Smith profiles a pop superstar.
If Taylor Swift didn't exist, it would be necessary to invent her. At least that's what I imagine the AI robots are saying to each other as they prepare to take over from us. She might just be the perfect pop star. The singer has just been declared a billionaire and has re-released one of her old albums, 1989, which became the most listened to album in a single day on Spotify. The tin men and women of the future know they needn't bother auditioning as singer-songwriters because we Earthlings already have someone who has the part down cold. With Swift, some say Tay-Tay, who is coming to the UK next year.
People come up to me and be like, just like do a show with like all the albums in it. And I was like, yeah, it's going to be called the Eras Tour.
Of course, it doesn't follow that you have to love her music, or adore her act, or agree with excitable critics that she's up there with the all-time greats.
She's really in a league of her own, I think. I have compared her to the Beatles, and part of it is the level of sustained popularity and radio, and part of it is just, I don't know if anybody's had the phrase 10 album streak since the Beatles.
Taylor Swift was born in 1989, in the wrong place. Her mother gave birth in West Reading, Pennsylvania, but it soon became apparent that her daughter Taylor was really a child of Nashville, 800 miles away. She wanted more than anything to be a country and western singer. From a young age, she sang in a karaoke contest run by musician and family friend Pat Garrett.
She was always tidy, and had a nice outfit on, and looked like she was ready for show business, if you know what I mean. I think she's been planning this ever since she's been 5 years old or something.
In truth, it probably would have suited her better growing up if her daddy wasn't a financial advisor either. There aren't many country songs that dwell plangently on prudent pension planning or tax mitigation. It's not exactly the coal miner's daughter, is it? On the plus side, though, Mum and Dad, Scott and Andrea, loved music and named their girl after the great singer-songwriter James Taylor. One of Swift's first bookings was in a junior production of the set.
I went to see her at a showcase where she was doing a guitar pull in Nashville with 2 other singers, and definitely thinks Taylor Swift is the third most likely person on that bill to be any kind of star. I just thought she's too hot, and it's not going to happen in country music.
But it dawned on Willman that this raw kid had something.
Suddenly I realized that these were original songs that were written for her, and there was this incredible spark there. I was begging my editors to cover her. I read The Wall of Resistance. Like, why would you cover that?
Swift is very conscious of different times in her life, and how the records she made then defined those periods for her. That's what her current Eras Tour is all about. Her first big hit was a song called Tim McGraw in 2006, when she was 17. It's a hat tip to a country star, but Swift gradually crossed over to pop from country, where she had struggled to get noticed as a young woman, to break through the rhinestone ceiling. Her first out-and-out pop album was released in 2014, when she was 25. She named it after the year she was born, 1989, as if to signify that it marked a rebirth, that this was the authentic Taylor Swift after all. Her fans loved the music. Tay-Tay spoke to them about boys and broken hearts, love and loneliness.
When I was in my early 20s and I was listening to Taylor Swift in her early 20s, and the things that she was talking about mattered a lot to me, and that I think is what the centre of that connection is.
Jack McKay
Henna is in the music industry herself as a PR for several pop stars, and she's writing a book about banding. In her ingenue phase, Swift was keen to please, to be a good girl as she has described it. That's what she was raised to be, she said. So it came as a rude shock when she was collecting a prize for Best Female Video at the MTV Awards in 2009, and the rapper Kanye West jumped on stage.
Thank you so much for giving me a chance to win a VMA award.
I'm really happy for you. I'll let you finish. But Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time.
Kanye snatched a moment of glory from her. She in turn fired back with a song entitled Leaves. She had made friends and fans in the virtual world, but there were haters there too. And as Taylor Swift was discovering only too well, haters gonna hate. For some at least, Swift was no longer the homecoming queen. Critics found plenty to complain about. Taylor rarely talked in public, so they decided she was icy and uptight and passed judgment on her private life. She's dated a number of famous men, including Tom Hiddleston and Harry Styles. She gave her side of things in a speech at New York University.
Having the world treat my love life like a spectator sport, in which I lose every single game, was not a great way to date in my teens and 20s. But it taught me to protect my private life.
Swift decided to back out of the limelight. In 2016, she all but disappeared. She said later, "Nobody physically saw me for a year, and that's what I thought they wanted." Her comeback into the public eye could hardly have been more challenging. She went to court accusing a former DJ of groping her. At the end of the week-long trial in 2017, the court found in her favour. Her lawyer was Douglas Aldridge.
It's courage and inspiration to all people, not just women, but to all people, to have the courage to start on. And you know where those lines are. The lines of mutual respect between
The case seemed to be a turning point, revealing to Swift her opportunity, or was it an obligation, to speak out against what she saw as wrong. This was Taylor Swift 2.0. She spoke out against then President Trump in 2020 after the death of George Floyd, accusing him of stoking the fires of white supremacy and racism. Like Dolly Parton before her, as well as other tender-hearted but tough-as-boots divas of country and western folklore, Taylor Swift has learned to be resilient and get what she's due. She's been remaking her old albums, basically to stick it to the man. These remakes, or Taylor's versions as they're known, amount to a protest against her former management company. Swift signed with them when she was just 15, in a deal which gave her a cash advance in exchange for the company owning the master recordings of her first 6 albums. The rights to them have since been sold to an investment company, much to Swift's anger. But by re-recording the albums, she makes it harder for the company to make money, while making more money herself. She's a smart woman, not to be crossed. For some listeners, her music just gets better and better. Not only is she an established queen of pop, but her recent stuff has been known to move hard-to-please indie fans to reluctant grunts of appreciation. Some prize the recognition made back in lockdown.
Critical and ethical. They are the quiet, introspective, reflective album, and the response to those was universal credibility. Any naysayers of Taylor now find it incredibly hard to naysay.
Welcome to This Cultural Life, the series in which the world's leading creative people reveal formative influences and experiences that inspired their own artistic work. I'm John Wilson, and my guest in this episode is Judy Dench, a star of stage and screen for nearly 7 decades now, and a multiple BAFTA and Oscar winner. She spent her career bringing to life a hugely diverse array of characters, but she is first and foremost one of the greatest classical actors of our times, and it's her love of Shakespeare that we'll focus on in this filmed edition of This Cultural Life. We went to Judy Dench's house in Surrey to discuss The Bard, or as she calls him in the title of her new book on Shakespeare, The Man Who Pays the Rent. Judy Dench, welcome to This Cultural Life. You were born in 1934 and grew up in York. Set the scene for us. What was family like?
I was born, yes, in York, in 1934. My father was a doctor, and I think at one time he had the largest practice among his people, with Dr. Kay and Dr. Ashwood, and I had 2 brothers older than me. And of course at that time, no television, no iPad, so we all had Bibles. And we made our own entertainment. And then the day came on the theatre. My second mother, Jane, only ever wanted to be an actor. My oldest mother wanted to be a teacher. And I wanted to be a designer. That's what I set out to do. From quite a young age, because we were taken to the theatre. We were taken to, I remember once being to see Cookery in the Nest, and I laughed so that Discovery was in bed, and suddenly a chest was on the bed open, and a man stood up and grasped my hands, and I laughed so much, my mother had to take me home. But the wonderful thing is that I was taken back another night later to see what happened. That's my family character.
How does it work?
Yes, everyone. My father used to be able to, he could recite the whole of Hiawatha. And Jeff, my brother, who wanted to be actor, he suddenly brought to the music for once more doing just today, a couple of times, changing the visuals to see there's some fantastic night, you can do it, sound of brothers and benefit of people.
Jeff actually went to
He certainly did.
in fact, he went to drama school at St.
He
John's.
went
He
to
went to
Central, and he went to, and I think he still, when he was at four seasons, because of my British.
Did he lead the way?
I expect he certainly did, but I only ever wanted to be a designer, and I went to York Art School.
So your father, medical man, interested in theatre. Were your parents involved in Amsterdam as well?
Yes, they were. So I went to the father, my mom used to be a politician, and then of course, E. Martin Brown, from Channel Furthers, they decided to resurrect Miracle Ministries. So we cast the angels, 6 of us were angels in the first. My father played Anna Stein, my mom played April. After all those years,
That's quite a big event. Was that your first time on stage, though?
no, but I played the snail. I played the snail. That's in my prep school. You know that, is it 4 and 20 tailors? I don't know if it's tailors or tailors. I think it's tailors. When you kill a snail, the best man amongst them there, not acceptable. Something like that. All that. And all the shell comes up there. And then all our parents came. I stood up. I was absolutely I didn't just remember this because I said, and she my first name.
Improvising, right?
Yes.
It's improvising like the snail. When was the first time you ever saw something before?
I saw it from the previous school, York. I saw Macbeth. my brother's picture on the duck. And he walked into what bloody man's and I thought, he's happy. And then we went to Stratford in 53. When I was still then talking in design, and saw my great grave was here. And it was the most incredible sun, which was a great huge flat circle, and in the middle was a pile of stones which turned so that there could be a table or a throne or anything else. So nobody had to come in with anything, and the patch was completely continuous. And that's where something about designing comes down. I just remember thinking, this section was never in my wildest dreams. Would I be able to think of something like that? I'm not going to be good enough for this.
Then you thought from that moment that actually, rather than designing, that's the...
I don't know, I don't suppose you know, but I think gradually I just will. I'll try and get it so crafty. And, but I think I would prefer to be written it down for so cool.
You were a photographer? It must have gone pretty well. You made your professional debut soon after leaving drama school. What professional debut to make as a female in Hamilton in 1957 at the Old Vic, which was in effect national theatre at the time, being an exhibition theatre, the South End. Do you have memories of your first night?
But what was so wonderful is that Michael Bailey ran said to me, I didn't and he said to me, other parts you were understudy all the time. That way you could learn. And so that was 57. And I did see that.
So he was often a proper job rather than just a role. It's quite a responsibility to take on, isn't it?
So you said, well, when it was taken away from it, after we'd done one season of it, we went to America with Hamlet and Cosine and Meredith. Mariah, which we've done up there, and I played the Princess of France. You are down the hill. These things more rich. Their perfume would ask, they breathe again. For to the noble mind, rich gifts wax poor when givers prove unkind. Because Michael, gentle, that phrase, and believed that I would learn by just, he said just walk up to learn, and I thought how you married me. I never remember going to my dressing room at the big ever. But people were ignored, you know, the English was ignored here. We had to blame all of it.
This is regarded as a landmark place, directed by Trevor Knight. And you can tell on this video. What was the biggest challenge you faced related to that?
They're all challenging, I think. They all present you very different in that regard. Entirely to do with the working process of working with. And I really, of course you have to do your own things, but it's very much a responsibility, I think, to everybody else.
And you said you had to work within the production and within psychological map that has been laid out by Trevor Knight, the director. But how much, when you take on a role like that, how do you set out to give a new fresh interpretation of
No, I'm totally very, I think just, you have to just feel like you play this to the best of my ability, with the best of my understanding. And of course with Trevor and with Ian and with everybody else in the cast. It's like a recipe. You're not out from there.
and the rehearsals?
Very, very fun. Trevor was doing this, and I remember once walking back with him from the other place, and we were very down about it. And I said, well, I'm happy with myself. And then I challenged him, but I challenged him to do an answer and get something all the way back. I don't know what that was to do with a kind of nervousity aspect, but it did come together. Why did you put together? What's like that? Go carry something small, greens with blood.
I'll go that far. I am a serious thing, but I think that what God is again.
Sleeping on the bed, I have pictures. To the eye of child in which he was painted dead. We used to have an adorable man called a vicar called Neville Roundy, and he used to come, he came 2 or 3 times, and he used to sit there with a crucifix, and he used to open it up towards us and talk really what was going on.
Well, sorry, in rehearsal or in the performance?
In the performance.
Oh, in the performance.
Oh, certainly not.
No, but the reason I asked you about the rehearsals is I wonder at what point, given that that is now regarded as one of the great productions and an amazing performance by you, at what point do you know? Does it come together in rehearsals? Do you have a until it starts, until the run starts?
Oh, until the run finishes. You don't 35 seconds in, I have to think back. You know, I did something one day and said I couldn't see it.
Couldn't see it then?
Yes, because it was so dark.
Oh, I see, right.
When I went to that, I wouldn't be able to see it all. I know because I can't see it.
Are you responding also to the audience when you say let it place? Because it's such an intimate space, so you must be very vividly aware of reactions to a very real. Right.
Because one night, I was sitting reading at Ian's feet, and he said, you know that line, light stickling, and the crow makes wings to the little view. He said, light stickling, and the crow makes wings to the little view. Never very crow, but I laughed and laughed, and I thought I have to say it, and why not? I can remember thinking, why not? It's going to be stereo this time, you've got to finish it. So I had to get the laptop and go over it. Oh, wait, we'll see it.
But that must be very difficult then, have to get the text and know that people are seeing everything in your face, but playing it at the Olivier or somewhere, a big space, it must change.
Changes all the time.
The performance.
Changes all the time. Because if you have to go people say to you or something, the next time they go, oh, I must do it like that. No, that never works like that. You've got to rethink it like I think. I have to. They don't. But I have to kind of think it. The Raven himself, of course, the purpose of making him diamond under my back. So extraordinary, the babies that up till May begun, the tension is so remarkable. I haven't heard Sir James cracking short last time for a long time. That stopped out in the middle of he goes into the other shop. And I think it's going to be like, someone said to me the other day, you know, the dog says that you're all dressing behind the black curtain. I said, you decided it. I do like that thing with all these things. I think that's the main thing. Stop up the access to passage controls. The local countries visiting to nature shaped by real purpose. Look at and we were the very, very because these were set books for them, and they had never seen a production of them before. And it was our responsibility to bring those books to life.
So where were you performing? In village hall? Out in the open, in villages. Paint the scene. What's happening when you make your entrance as Lady Macbeth?
Well, everything that rhymed made everybody laugh a little. So the Dana Fide had a wife, used to bring the house down. Absolutely. Oh, God. And one night, Polly Adams was playing one of the two blue eyes. Still feel having an enormous responsibility. But I suppose experience taught me that we need to worry about, everybody's nerves. And it's not your job transmitting nerves to anybody. You want the rest of the company to just get on and do it or better. And the next night we're better than that.
Kenneth Branagh, on stage with you playing Leontes as the king who imprisons his wife and sends his baby daughter into exile because he's consumed by a fit of sexual jealousy. How was it directed by your co-star?
Yeah, I think that's happened to you before, Henry.
Henry Ford.
Yeah. It was all last night, isn't it?
No, was it?
Yes, it was. It turned on just when I thought it was a scene. Just wonderful. Just wonderful. I'm fearful if you die well. Die in a battle. Covered in chestnut with the strong of anything. When blood is there. Cast these hands in the mud. Die well. Get on the up. What was the question?
Being directed by a co-star.
Yes. Perhaps because I know him so well. When we ghosts, especially together. We were sent out of the studio with our that was my dad. I know him very, very, very well. And, well, it's just brilliant to work with.
It must have been quite challenging. I saw that performance. Time being kind of note to the moment.
Yes.
A lot of time has passed. It's quite complicated. People feel away. People come back. Before it's all wrapped up at the end. What was known at the time was that your eyesight was degenerating each way. And I remember seeing that performance and thinking, they need such a bit of clarity to deliver presence on the stage. How difficult was it already then to be on stage?
Not that difficult. Like to say, she had a different idea. Or the reach and it was. So I got to can't do that. I do something, I do a show with Charles Brandon, which we do very well. And he does a very kind thing. I've never actually said anything about it, but now, because he at night and I can walk on, and he has a wonderful book, mat, which is kind of black and white, looks like a huge zebra sign. But you know, I'm like playing with it, I make it a black. I just see, oh yes, I see. reason. So that's thinking about that. Maybe I can learn how it's tricky. I would, well, look,
So there are parts coming up that you're not reading the script for.
no, and I've realised that I have to know where it is on the page before I can put it in pen. I don't know why, but there it is. So, although one will say that you're learning something, but I don't know exactly where it is. I don't know what that's got to do with what it's called. I just realised that that's what it is.
So how do you learn to write? You get somebody to read them out to you.
Well, I haven't had to do it since mine have been this bad, and I will. I'll find a way.
What's the big part in that then? Or any part?
Well, am I going to tell you that? No.
That's why I asked to see whether you would. So stage to Shakespeare. There must be a moment you want to.
I've never not been.
Really?
Never not been. No. I didn't like Bob Peck's legs going the wrong way. That's it. But there's, I mean, there are things you like to do.
Well, it's going to be said, there must be something.
I've never been in a Othello. That would have been nice at some point. I don't like Merchant of Venice's play. I didn't like I still don't like that play. They all behaved so badly. It's not much excuse for it. Michael and I, when we were first married, it was Michael. He played the son, and I played Portia. Michael's standing there, and I'm standing there. The wind band is on stage, and Polly James is waiting to see me come over where it's fancy bread, and Michael is waiting to make the choice of gold, silver, and you know, she goes on, kind of giving hints. And then I had a line, which was, I speak too long, but is the peace, the time, the easement, and the joys out in the neck, disdain from election. And I said, Michael, I speak too long, but is the peace, time, the easement, and the joy out in the neck, disdain from election. At which point the wind band quietly put down their instruments and walked off stage. And we left Polly James to sing it. Tell me where his fancy bread.
Which is a reminder that Shakespeare not only offers the most incredible insights to the human condition, but he's a right laugh as well, isn't he, sometimes? Judy Debs, thank you so much for sharing your cultural life with us.
Not very cultural.
Quite a life, though. Well, I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Dame Judy Dench, our last guest in this current series of This Cultural Life. If you missed any of the other great artists that we've had on in recent weeks, including Stephen Fry, playwright Lucy Preble, musician Audrey Kidjo, choreographer Matthew Bourne, lyricist Bernie Taupin, and filmmaker Werner Herzog, they're all available as podcasts on Easy Sounds and global platforms. All the previous series are there too. We'll be back with the next series at the end of December, but from me, John Wilson, and producer Edwina Pittman, thank you very much for listening to This Cultural Life.
And all's well that ends well. And if Dame Judy has whet your appetite, hear more from the bond on Wednesday's front row at 7:15. The year that Shakespeare's first folio was first published, Tom Sutcliffe and guests discussed the Copeland Highlands in 1623, with music, plays, and poetry.
Hello, I'm Brian Cox. I'm Rob Nix, and we are here to announce that there is yet another series of the Infinite Monkey Cage. We are announcing, and that is because we're going to talk about octopuses, AI, why dinosaurs got so big. We've got Dara Brill, Brandon Bright, we've got Sophie Teager, we've got Russell Kane, we've got 3 astronauts, we've got the whole team of the Starry Night, and we've got Dave Gould. You have been forewarned. The Infinite Monkey Cage returns Saturday night at 7:15 on Radio 4 and BBC Sounds. It's an official announcement. BBC News at 8 o'clock. The evacuation of foreigners and people with dual nationality citizenship from Gaza to Egypt has been suspended. Foreign Office said it's disappointed the rapid boarding has been temporarily closed and is using all diplomatic channels to press for its reopening. There are 100 names for the UK section of this order was supposed to be today. 88 of those are citizens. The US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, has resisted calls by Arab leaders for a ceasefire in Gaza. The East Middle East officials in Jordan. Foreign ministers of both Jordan and Egypt said that an immediate ceasefire was vital. Mr. Blinken said instead there must be a humanitarian pause in the fighting. Correspondent Anthony Zerka is travelling with Mr. Blinken.
He's trying to make the case that humanitarian pauses would allow to reach the Gazans and also perhaps facilitate the release of hostages, while a complete ceasefire would allow Hamas to regroup and conduct war military operations against the Israelis in the future.
Yesterday, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he would not agree to a ceasefire until all hostages have been returned. Israel says Hamas has executed 41 people, 4 women have since been released, and 1 soldier free. Charities, Labour and the Lib Dems condemned the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, after she called people living in tents on the streets a nuisance. She said for many it's a lifestyle choice. Housing charity Shelter said nobody should be punished for being homeless. Thousands of ice hockey fans have arrived at Nottingham's Motorpoint Arena for a tribute ceremony for the player Adam Johnson, who was fatally injured by a skate blade during a match last weekend. It will include a 2-minute silence. Players, staff and fans were invited to sign a book of condolence this afternoon. BBC News.
Come on, radio.
So you have a lot of little teeny bots running all the way through saying, oh, is that about those free food? Go ask him. What if it isn't? Then what do we do? He's just nobody. Just an ordinary person. That's right. So, as a result, Laurel Canyon is sort of being evacuated slowly by mindless rock and roll singers who just can't take it anymore. And they're trying to find a more secret place. But there are some wonderful people over there, so. And this is a song I'd like to play because the ladies of the canyon. The ladies of the canyon actually are involved in places that the three people who ended up there. One of them is a Canadian. Lower East Side, and the other was Czechoslovakian, Puerto Rican girl from a certain family in Florida. They all ended up there with their various talents. So representational of the good song.
I've always been somewhat reluctant. I like small clubs. I am a ham, and I am an enjoyer. I enjoy partying, so a club is kind of a party. It's fairly loose. But the big stage, timing is of the essence. I work in 50 different tunings, and then you receive the criticism for that, like it's a real pain in the butt.
They listened for 3 days, and today they sounded the retreat and headed for home. The sponsors said it was going to be 3 days of peace and music. It was that all right, and much more. Estimates of the crowd ranged up to more than 300,000, and it was that size that caused most of the trouble. That and the rainstorms that turned the big dairy meadow into a mud farm.
Next song I'm going to play is about one of the pop festivals that we've been having around the world lately. It's one that I didn't really get to go to. I've been playing the night before in Chicago with a band, friends of mine, called Still Nash Young, etc., etc. And it was their first professional appearance, and we were all kind of excited about it. And the next night we were supposed to all play in Woodstock, and I had to do a TV show the next day, so I kind of got left behind because we were having problems getting people in and getting back out again and everything. So I stayed home in New York and I watched on television all day. And saw everybody there playing and singing, and it was really a nice festival, I guess, from the looks of everything. And, well, I wrote a little song for my friends to sing, and I love to sing as well, and it's called Woodstock.
When I reflect back on what the 60s felt like and what made them distinctive, there was a common will to goodness. Part of it was that it was fashionable to be good. It was fashionable to be kind. It was hip to do the right thing. So you had masses of people, the bulk of the population curve, all with the long hair, which was the flag of belonging to that community. You had a majority behaving like a minority, a persecuted majority. Poor to middle class to rich kids, all kind of evened out and being attacked by the powers that be. It was a phenomenon. That's what I don't think we can duplicate. It's that curve and that phenomenon. As the spirit wore down, and I believe Woodstock was the climax of it, as it wound down, we entered into the 70s, which was a period of apathy, a sense of failure. In that introspective period, I believe people tried a lot of self-help and spiritual programs, trying to maintain the idealism, trying to change themselves, realizing that they couldn't change the world, trying to change themselves as individuals, still working on that idealism. By the end of the 70s, I believe that most of them had given up on that, and we entered into the gritty 80s, where it was no longer fashionable to be kind, it was no longer hip to be nice, to be as caustic and as backbiting and as undermining, like that song of Elvis Costello's, "You're nobody in this town unless you've been Columbia and dropped out." Because what had happened, they're looking at me, and all I've done is reveal human traits. They haven't seen themselves in it. At the point that they see themselves in it, the communication is complete. At the time that it was recorded, and I can show you on later albums, the absence of this, and then on later ones gaining it back. But the thing about it was that I could look at people with music. I mean, my drive perception, like all drawings, was set so low that it was almost a psychic thing where I could see through people, and I'm sure that they could see through me. I felt like we were all celibate, but that was recorded during that time period. So I was incapable of guile. I mean, you need a certain amount of guile for self-defense, friendly guy, fooling around. I didn't have that, so I was just dripping in earnestness and sincerity. I'd lost my sense of humor. As a result, it's like the London Philharmonic. If it's real emotion, is real emotion. And there is a lot of stuff that doesn't date when you're so going through that change, like blue. There's so many sinking, now you gotta keep thinking you can make it through these waves. Acid losing that, all the drug pitfalls that kids are into. In that way, it's like Kipling. Blue and Kipling's If have a lot in common. It's like you're down to the bare bone. If you listen to that music and you see me, you're not getting anything out of it. If you listen to that music and you see yourself, it'll probably working on Courtney Barker, I told Henry Louis, set me up facing the drummer, John Guerin, in Cincinnati. We lived together for some years after that. But he had this look in his eyes, you know, when he played, you know, and I said, you gotta set up the vocal booth facing the drummer because he gave me this fiery support. And it pushed the music to a level that wouldn't otherwise achieve. One of my favorite tracks to dance to is Burundi War Piece. It's just full of licks that later isolated and repeated became pockets of rock and roll. For instance, on Kissing with Some Alarms, I did a piece and I isolated a Bo Diddley figure from this passage and looped it, ran it over and over again.
20 people are dead in a mass shooting that's happening in Lewis and stand up for what I thought right.
The House Speaker is calling this week's mass shootings in Maine a tragedy that says it is not the time to talk about any gun safety.
22 people were killed.
First shots rang out, and that is not the path we want to go down. America is different, and we are exceptional.
That is the number one cause of death among children in the United States. I consider myself a Christian. The Bible tells us that there is a life from good and evil.
The only thing that's going to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
So help us God.
I pray to God every day that I do not have to use these skills for any reason, but I'm also carrying my daughter up there. Yes, I saw that. And I shouldn't kill her. She does for a living.
Put on my sidearm when I leave. Go to work this morning.
Four-year-old boy killed in an accident.
13-year-old has been killed in an accident.
16-year-old boy is dead.
Little boy got his hands on a gun before he accidentally shot himself of 5 years old.
Alexa, twisting this.
Yes, Tina Cross, Houston at 5, John Holmes, Sarah Armstrong, Toby Roberts, Sam Banks, Secretary for Detroit, Hopkins, Kevin Chelsea, Paul Cummings, Redburn, Steve Cotton, Kevin Smith, Nick Hesketh and John Rustin. Producer is John Holmes. This was an unusual production for BBC Radio 4 and BBC Sounds.
So here in the United States, we use guns to protect everything that we hold near and dear, to protect our politicians, our celebrities, our red carpets, you name it, everything that we deem important.
The main mass shooter obtained several weapons legally in the days immediately before the attack.
I love this video so much. So I'm here long enough, I give it
Works Wednesday night on 92 to 95 FM, Longwave Digital Radio platform. BBC Sounds. This is BBC Radio 4.
BBC News at 10 o'clock. This is John Hammond. Good evening. Foreign ministers from Jordan and Egypt have told America's top diplomats they want an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Antony Blinken said that would only allow Hamas to regroup. No foreign nationals have been able to leave Gaza today because of the closure of the Rafah crossing into Egypt. Homeless charities have criticised the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, after she said some people were living on the streets in tents as a lifestyle choice. The government will put a stop to it. In sports, England's defence of the Cricket World Cup has petered out in the group stage. Representatives of Arab nations meeting in Jordan have told the visiting US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, there must be an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Speaking at a joint news conference in Amman, the Jordanian Foreign Minister Ayman Safadi condemned the attacks by Hamas on Israel on the 7th of October. He said rage shouldn't be allowed to destroy the lives of millions of people. Mr. Blinken repeated a call he made yesterday in Tel Aviv for humanitarian pauses in fighting in Gaza, which was rejected by the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. North American correspondent Anthony Sergin has been travelling with Mr. Blinken and sent this report from Amman.
Both Egyptian Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry and his Jordanian counterpart emphatically called for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Mr. Safadi said that while nobody in their right mind can willingly pay Israelis felt because of the attack by Hamas, continued military action would not bring the region security, and it would not bring the Israelis peace.
We cannot allow this war to undermine all that which was done to bring about just peace. Every missile happens in Gaza, every killing of a civil child, the whole thing is simply innocent of victims that we find the problem.
Antony Blinken reiterated U.S. support for Israel taking action to ensure its security. He insisted that military action could not simply halt at this point.
Ceasefire now. We simply leave Hamas in place, able to regroup and repeat what it did on October 7th. And you don't have to take my word for it. Just a few days ago, a senior Hamas official said that it was their intent to do October 7th again and again and again.
Mr. Blinken stressed that a series of localized humanitarian pauses in military action would be a more effective way of ensuring the distribution of aid to Palestinians and creating the conditions for hostages to be released. All three men were united on one point, that permanent peace in the region ultimately hinged on Palestinian statehood.
With his assessment of the meeting in Jordan, the latest on fighting in Gaza, here's our correspondent in Jerusalem, Paul Adams. As he travels around the region, Antony Blinken is trying to minimize the humanitarian consequences of Israel's relentless assault on Hamas. The Americans believe they've persuaded Israel to allow more aid into the Gaza Strip. This could soon include fuel. U.S. Special Envoy David Satterfield saying there's now an agreed mechanism to bring fuel in once existing supplies are exhausted. Israeli forces, meanwhile, are pushing deeper and deeper into Gaza City. Video released by Hamas shows intense street battles, but several 100,000 civilians remain in the north. Israel is still trying to persuade them to get out of the way. Those that don't, won't, or can't are still being caught up in desperate scenes. And a crowded UN school in the Jabalia refugee camp, where civilians have been sheltering, Palestinians said an Israeli airstrike killed more than a dozen people. Bombs were falling on us, says Sajida. People were cut into pieces. We want a ceasefire. Please, we're exhausted. Today, Israel said the main road south from Gaza City will be open for 3 hours for anyone wanting to leave. The army said the Hamas government attacked Israeli troops operating on the road. It accused Hamas, not for the first time, of trying to stop people from leaving. There were also problems at the Rafah crossing, reports suggesting no more foreign nationals were allowed to leave Gaza. It seems Hamas wanted Egypt to admit more wounded people before letting any more foreigners leave. In London, a Foreign Office spokesman expressed disappointment but
said the government was pressing for the crossing to be reopened. Israel says its warplanes have targeted Hezbollah positions, including rocket warehouses, in response to fire from southern Lebanon. Hezbollah says its fighters had attacked at least 6 Israeli border posts. Yesterday, the leader of the Iran-backed militia group, prescribed terror organisation in the UK and many other Western countries, said it was prepared for all options to declare a wider conflict with Israel. Tens of thousands of protesters have joined rallies in dozens of towns and cities across the UK to call for an end to Israeli military action in Gaza. In London, demonstrators marched to Trafalgar Square. Metropolitan Police said 11 people have been arrested, including one for displaying a placard that could incite hatred. Correspondent Marina Iyengar was at the protest in central London and sent this report.
The Metropolitan Police say around 30,000 protesters converged in central London at Trafalgar Square. There were families and people of all ages and faiths, including some from the Jewish community. Most had a message of peace.
They're not hate marches, they're marches for very positive things. A ceasefire, justice and equality.
There are many Jewish people here. Many of my Jewish friends are very pro-Palestinian and want peace for people who've historically lived together to be able to live together once in a place as they can around the world.
Just looking at everybody, such a mixture of people here. I think they just want peace.
Police said there would be a sharp focus on potential hate crime, and they would be monitoring social media and using facial recognition to deal with this. There were also protests in Manchester, Belfast, Edinburgh, Glasgow and Cardiff. Next weekend there are plans for a mass rally on the 11th of November, which is Armistice Day. Proposed marches have been criticised by Rishi Sunak as provocative and disrespectful.
Large protests have also been held in Europe and the Middle East. Paris saw its first committed pro-Palestinian demonstration after previous attempts were banned because of other border concerns. Some protesters in Turkey called for US Secretary of State Antony Blinken to stay away after it was announced to visit Israel's home in Jordan. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has said the war between Israel and Hamas is taking away the focus from conflict in his country. Speaking to news conference in Kyiv, head of the European Commission Ursula von der Leyen, and Europe regional editor Danny Abraham.
The focus of President Zelensky's talk with Ursula von der Leyen was on progress towards getting formal EU accession talks approved. From what the Commission boss said, that is going well. The more crucial situations regarding Ukraine's fight against Russian invaders seems less positive. Mr. Zelensky denied fighting had reached a stalemate, despite a recent assessment to this effect by Ukraine's top general. But he acknowledged that people were tired. Mr. Zelensky also denied he was coming under pressure to consider peace talks with Russia, following a report in the US media. His country would not sit down with Moscow to work out what to give it, he stressed. What Ukraine needed, he said, was to work more with allies on air defence and freeing up skies from Russian control to give its military the chance to liberate territory. A concerted counter-offensive by Ukraine since the summer has failed to deliver decisive gains against entrenched Russian defences, and political wranglings in the United States about military aid only complicates the picture.
Police in Hamburg in Germany say they're dealing with a hostage situation at the city's airport. Press reports in Germany say an armed man going through a security gate. His wife had previously alerted the police to a possible child abduction. Hamburg Airport says no flights can leave or depart while the police operation is underway. The Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, has said she wants to put a stop to homeless people pitching tents on the streets, describing it as a nuisance. She said for many, it's a lifestyle choice. Labour, the Lib Dems and homeless charities have criticised her comments, as our political correspondent Tony Bonsignori reports. This move, part of wider plans to replace the 1824 Vacancy Act, will introduce new penalties for homeless people whom the authorities believe have turned down offers of help and alternative accommodation. Sources say it will be specifically targeted at those living in tents which create a public nuisance, for example in shop doorways. And charities which provide tents to homeless people in similar circumstances could also face sanctions. Suella Braverman said today that she couldn't allow our streets to be taken over by rows of tents occupied by people, many of them from abroad, she said, living on the streets as a lifestyle choice.
Campaign groups are unimpressed.